Grind don't stop. Grind don't stop. Grind don't stop. Grind don't stop. Grind don't stop.
Hi, everybody. Oh, I love being on this show because the music is just so good. Hi, I'm Josie Caballero, and this is Taylor, our Skeptical Heretic.
Hi.
This is Chewed Gum, and we're very happy to be here. And how have you been, Taylor?
I've been doing pretty good, honestly. I'm in the best season right now, Halloween season, so I'm like happy the entire month of October. How about you?
Yeah, spooky season is the best season. No, I have been busy as I always am. I think people know that that's my state of being at this point. But yeah, it's nice to be here in the evening because when I usually do the Transatlantic Holland show, I'm usually here during the day, and it's nice to be able to like get off work and then do this. It's like, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's really nice. So yes, everybody, you are here on Chewed Gum and on the line, and we are accepting calls. The lines are wide open. And if you'd like to call in, make sure you call 720-619-2288, or you can find us on the web link below. We're willing to talk about all topics, particularly around feminism and anything that you'd like to talk about. I'm the resident political expert, so if you want to get political, let's go. Let's make that happen. And if you haven't liked or subscribed to the stream yet, make sure you do that as well. So yeah. Um, so as we're waiting for people to call in, make sure that you do that now. Yeah, so I also want to mention, because I haven't told this to the Chewed Gum audience yet about myself, I am actually running for political office. Surprise, surprise. I'm running here in Montgomery County Council here in Maryland, and it's incredibly exciting. So make sure you go to my website at josieformaryland.com, and also I'm dropping my little donation link in the chat. Help me hit 23,000 tonight. Let's make it happen. Yeah, so Taylor, is there anything that you want to plug for yourself?
No, you guys know I'm mostly on TikTok, but that app is very unstable. So if you want to stay with me though, subscribe to my YouTube. I'm trying to get more into that and dedicate more time and energy into that just because of how unstable TikTok is. So yeah, that's where
Yeah.
I want to try and like grow community there just because you never know what's going to happen with TikTok. One day it's here, one day it's gone. Who knows?
Well, now that the right wing grift has got its hands on it, we
I know.
don't really know what's gonna happen. With
Yeah,
Murdoch, the worst
exactly.
person.
I don't even know what it's going to look like. Like who knows? I feel like it's going to be a Twitter situation like
Y-
how that kind of turned into something insane, and I kind of have that feeling that that's going to happen to TikTok. Hopefully not, but we'll see.
Yeah, no,
Ugh.
I mean, I that is like that's like nightmare fuel to think about, like Twitter coming to life with like streaming, like video format, like that is
Yeah.
horrifying.
That
It's
really
like
is nightmare
short
fuel. I
form.
haven't really I haven't even really thought about it like that, but you're so right. You're so right. Yeah, hopefully not. And then I'm always conflicted, like, if it gets bad over there, do do you try and stay and fight it, or are you like, no, this isn't beneficial anymore? That's what like I kind of goes through my head with it. It's like I don't know really what the right answer would be, but I feel like maybe if it was bad enough to a point, it wouldn't be worth it anymore, but who knows? Only time will tell.
Ugh. Only time will tell, and, it's like it's kinda sad that we are trusting Google on YouTube to save us, with our content. That's the world that we are in right now, and,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Good
yes.
times.
Uh, good times. So we are I think we have a few callers coming in. We're processing them and getting them screened right now. So again, if you haven't had a chance to donate to the campaign, use a Zerba link, okay? Because Zerba is the unofficial mascot of all of our hearts, and yeah, Zerba's been bringing in the cash for everything for our SSA. So we have our Secular Student Alliance fundraiser on Saturday. So that's exciting to announce and talk about. So make sure you join us on Saturday as we are raising money for the Secular Student Alliance, and that's really exciting. Were you part of the Secular Student Alliance ever?
No, no, but I'm doing I think I'll be on like doing the fundraiser thing. That's the one on the 18th, right? Or no?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yes,
Okay, yeah. I
yeah,
think I'll be doing that. I'm hoping to do that and be protesting that day, so hopefully that timing works out.
yeah,
But
for
yeah.
sure. Um, so I am going to ask here. We have I'm double checking here just so I make sure that I'm looking at the right thing. Um, I think the calls are in the queue, but I don't know if they're in the call-in queue or in our host queue. So, uh, okay, that's what I thought. So,
Okay.
they are being screened. So, we have some good calls coming in though. I can see them. And again, if you haven't liked or subscribed, make sure you do so, and also make sure to join the Patreon. Do it. There's exclusive content there where you can get exclusive merch as well as actually exclusive content where we actually like do long form lectures, conversations, answer your questions so it's definitely good stuff as well. And speaking of the students, this Secular Student Alliance, I was a part of the SSA. In fact, the SSA when I was at university um, was actually my first social club that I joined outside of speech and debate because I am that kind of nerd. And it was actually the first time I actually had like a friend circle in college outside of the speech and debate nerds, and it was really, really great. It really did allow me to kind of like spread my wings and get into argumentation about like real world stuff outside of like the theoretical of speech and debate. We were actually talking about real things and deconstruction, and it was really important for me because it was right out of the Navy. I went into university and I was able to meet a group of people and actually, have friends in a way that was very important because I was also deconstructing from religion myself at that point in time. So it was really critical for me to be able to do that. So if you are doing anything, we are going to be streaming all day on Saturday on the 18th. So make sure that you join us. Have some fun. It's a lot of fun. We play games. It's a good time.
I absolutely love
Yeah.
that you're a debate nerd. I love Me and my husband watch like debates for fun. Like we love them so much. I don't know what it is, but I love debate. I love watching people debate, so I love that. And I love when I just love when I run into debate nerds cuz they're so fun. I just feel like what they do
Yeah.
is great, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and I did the old school like parliamentary policy debates type stuff where you get
I love
like
that.
8 minutes to set your case, and then you get the rebuttal, and then you get the rebuttal, and then it goes back and it goes back and forth.
I love
It's
that so
it's so much
much.
fun. It is, and
And I bet
yeah,
that's
I've won a couple medals.
oh, I bet. And I bet that's fun combination between like that and deconstructing religion. I'm sure that's like a hand in hand type deal, so that's
Oh,
perfect.
it so is. It so is because like people don't know that you can like knock out a premise and like knock an entire argument apart like a house of cards. Like it's so
Yep,
good. It's
I
like
love
oh,
that.
it's like the fallacies, every bit of it is incredibly great. So yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, if you ever get a chance, speech and debate in a formal way is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can only
yeah,
imagine how fun that is.
yeah. I was so into it. I actually like went to debate camp, like like the
I didn't
school
even
and
know there was
everything.
such a thing. That's so cool though. I
Yes,
love that.
yeah,
That's like
absolutely.
that's
Like
way
we would.
better than like band camp. That's way
Oh
better than
yeah,
band
eh,
camp. Debate camp? That's
yeah.
amazing.
I know. It's like we're just sitting there debating about everything. It's like, and then like we were all in college, so we were all just partying and debating random stuff all night long, nonstop. It was just like, it
That's
was so
amazing.
great. Yes. The things I miss about university for sure. Great. So we have our first call. So are you ready, Taylor? You ready to take the
Yes,
call?
I'm ready.
Okay, great. So we have Milo, she, and you are live on the line on Chewed Gum. How are you? What question would you like to talk about?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
Hi.
okay. That was extremely
Yes.
fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are our
So,
first caller of the night.
well, thank you. So, what I wanted to talk about, and the screener had said that I should bring it to a religious matter. So, do you want me to summarize the topic or just go into the religious matter?
Well, however you want to approach the conversation. So, do you have a question about it, or do you want to pause? How do you want to approach it? Because you called us, so we
Okay.
usually have people ask us
Uh,
questions when people call.
okay. And so, I'm being critical of your policy of uh, discouraging anonymous speakers, because I think it violates the basic human right of freedom of expression. And I understand that under capitalism, that businesses are not supposed to have to obey rights, that censorship is about the government and so on. But I think that the human right to anonymous speech is extremely important, and that even people that are in the audience of what your channel often tries to protect, example, trans people, often have the need to remain anonymous because there are threats not just locally, but even from the government. Donald Trump has declared that
Sure.
trans people are terrorists, and so the people who most need anonymous speech are typically the weakest, least powerful, poorest members of society. Uh,
Yeah. So, are you talking about the lines policy?
yes.
Is that like our show? Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
one of the things that so first I'm a trans woman, so I definitely understand about this. And my name is Josie Caballero. I'm publicly running for office, and you can easily find me very quickly. And I will say this about our anonymous policy. There's a lot of reasons why we do this on this platform. One is we have a lot of people who try to troll and try to come in with an agenda. So we at least ask people to say their first name, because of the fact that there's a lot of people that are calling in bad faith and actually trying to make a ruckus. And what we're trying to do is try to have good faith conversations with people across the world. And so it's really important for us to be able to have that, so we can make sure we have equal footing. And I know it can be very annoying, but we don't really ask for much. We just ask for your first name, pronouns, and the state or region that you are from. And we usually go from there. So that's kind of where we take that from. And it has, and we also are a private company, so we're not a public entity run by the state or government. So it's not necessarily the free speech thing. Like if this was a government forum, sure, I guess, but this is a private forum on a private platform.
Okay, and so I've heard that capitalist argument that the censorship only applies to the government; it doesn't apply to private businesses doing it. And I understand that is reflected in the law, in the federal law, that idea is supported. But if we were going to be super picky on what is censorship, originally it was just if the Flamen Dialis released doves at the temple of Jupiter of Optimus Maximus and read the omen that the Jupiter didn't like what was being said, then he would censor that thing. And so that's what if we want to be super technical, that's what the word means. But when a private company does censorship, it may be legal, but it's still restricting the rights of freedom. When a social media company, which is a private business, decides who's allowed to speak and who isn't.
I hear you, but we didn't ask for your ID to come in and do this call. You could not be Milo. Your first name could be completely different. We have people call in from all over, and it doesn't. I don't understand where you're from either on this call. And you put he, she on your pronouns. I feel that you're pretty anonymous, Milo. Like, I mean, this is about as anonymous as you can get, and so I mean, I feel like we are being very lenient with our policy, even in the way that we are talking about it. Taylor, do you want to jump in really quick with your thoughts?
I was only going to say that, yeah, you don't even have to my knowledge, you don't even have to give your real name. You could just say a random name. And so I guess I don't really understand, because you don't have to give like your real name. You could just give a name for them to refer you to, or refer to you as. So I don't know. I guess I just
I
don't
also
really
I want to
understand.
just pitch in as God for a second here. We take certain information from our callers because as an organization that represents women and represents trans people and represents unpopular political views, we receive death threats. And so we need a certain amount of information to turn over to the authorities in order for them to appropriately investigate. So like if somebody sends us a death threat, we report that to the FBI. And so that's why we ask for that. But the ladies are correct that you are allowed to lie about your name, and we are not restricting your speech or insisting on associating with you. We've talked this over with, consultation and been told that the amount of information that we collect is not it's not identifiable, really. So like legally speaking, there's no problem of like slander or damaging your reputation or anything that we could possibly be held liable for.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Milo?
Yeah.
Because it's like I understand the general premise about freedom of speech and like the First Amendment
Right.
and all of that, probably to ad nauseum, right? Like I think I know too much about this when I talk about my studied learning on constitutionality of constitutional free speech and things like that. So I mean, does that satisfy what you feel about our policy here on the line?
Well, it's just one example. I had requested to be listed anonymous, and Milo does happen to be my actual name.
Okay.
And so I
We've
am a
had
little
many Milos
surprised
on
that
this
you
show.
went ahead and revealed my name. I mean, it can't be
Oh, well,
undone now. You've done it. But
Well,
yeah,
you've
but I
called
mean, I
before
guess,
with your name previously, so I think that the call screener just used the same name from when you called before.
yeah,
right,
yeah,
because I
and
had been
Milo,
asked
like,
what my name was.
Yeah, and we would like to refer to people, right? Like when we're having the call, just like when I opened up the call, it's like, "Hi, Milo, you're live on the line with Chewed Gum. How are you today?" Right? Like that, like
Right.
it would be, so it's kind of like it's my cadence, as a host on this
Yeah.
show, to be able to have this content. So I mean, and also, like, if you didn't feel comfortable with that, you could have just said, "Okay, I don't need to talk." But I'm happy to have this
Right.
conversation with you. But I feel like that your question has been satisfied in a lot of ways, because I do want to know about what you called in. If it's only our privacy policy, then I think we've answered your question. Do you have another question? It says you are a theist here.
Well, yes, I am a theist. Yeah, I had called in 2 weeks ago and didn't get chosen, and I was told by the screener that it was because I was anonymous. So my original topic had been about matriarchy.
Okay, let's talk about it. What's your question about matriarchy?
Well, so it's now been 3 weeks ago. There was a discussion about matriarchy, and it was pure speculation, and it didn't really match what happens in matriarchy. And so, to use an example that I just mentioned that would be religious based, is in the 1990s, I worked with the Dene, and the Dene system then, I don't know if it's still done that way now. They had what were called chiefs, which is an English word, and the chiefs were all male. They had what they called wise women, and they were all women. And so all the interactions between the Dene and other nations or the U.S. government or whoever they're interacting with were done by their male chiefs, but all the decisions about what would actually happen were done by the wise women. And so that's an actual real matriarchy that still exists today, as compared to, and I don't know, it's the same two people that were even in that discussion 3 weeks ago, but there's real world examples that still exist today. There are examples of matriarchy that go back a long time, and it's not just a flipping of patriarchy where suddenly women boss men around. Matriarchal systems tend to be much more egalitarian than patriarchal systems. And even if the final decisions are being made by women, it in reality is a much fairer and equitable system.
So, what is your question, Milo, about matriarchy? Like we
So,
there are
so
really
it wasn't
very
so much
few matriarchal societies.
a
But what's your
currently
question?
there. Yeah. Well, it was not so much a question as I wanted to get across that matriarchy was not like what was being stated in that show 3 weeks ago, and I'm not holding the
Oh,
two of you responsible for that. That
yeah. I mean,
and, and there are
a
actually
lot.
numerous examples of matriarchy around the world right now, as well as in antiquity.
Somebody called in about matriarchy. I think I might have been there. I'm not sure. But when when we did well, like I'm not sure if it's the time you're talking about or not, but when we were talking about matriarchy once, somebody asked basically how we thought I think Christianity would change if it was a matriarchy or something like that, or
Yeah,
how
that's the
society
call.
would change. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure me and Alyssa basically came to the conclusion that we have no idea how that would work because patriarchy is so ingrained into everything, into like every crevice of life that and it forms like how we express our like genders and stuff like that that we don't even know what that would even begin to look like because of how much it forms everything. So I don't even think we really like thought we could answer it if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Y-
Ooh,
Yeah.
it's
So
your show. Would you
so
like to talk a little bit about real world examples?
Well, I mean, Milo, just for the sake of, driving the show here, it's much easier for us to actually like drill down on a specific thing that you want to talk about, because like we could talk about matriarchy and we could talk about how the world is actually a patriarchy in almost every way form across the world and like most of the power structures that exist. But like I don't know where to begin, and as hosts it's our duty to make sure that we actually have like conversation between each other, and I just want to make sure that we drill down on a topic of discussion. So what is it specifically about matriarchy versus patriarchy do you want to discuss?
Well, I think that matriarchy is a better system.
Sure, we agree. Like, I mean, but the thing is,
Okay.
it's like, the idea is right now we live in a patriarchal system where it invades every aspect of our lives, including masculine people. So, like, people who are men are also oppressed by the patriarchy as well. But to have a true matriarchy is very, like, we don't want to have matriarchy flipped on its head, where it's like you said, where it's like, oh, we're now the oppressors. Like, what we think a lot of people are asking for is just equality and being able to like exist without it having to be the gender oppression of what patriarchy has done to women across the world. Like, women are policed with their bodily autonomy. Like Milo, I think you agree with all of this. So
Right.
I guess to just ask you a direct question, you say you're a theist. In
Yes.
theology, in any type of religious, it's all based in a patriarchal system. In fact, it's an edict of most religious systems. So do you agree with that sentiment? Like, for example, in
For
Catholicism,
most
a woman can't
religions,
even be
not
a
for my.
priest. Okay, what is
Okay.
yours?
So I know it's an obscure religion, the ancient Egyptian religion,
Okay. Okay, interesting. So like
and
Anubis and stuff like that?
yeah, that's the Greek terms. It
Okay.
originally it was a pure matriarchal society, but the matriarchy lasted until Theodosius outlawed it, and that was under the
Okay.
Roman Empire. But
So
things
my
like
so
so
okay,
the
I get
person who
it.
was the person who was pharaoh
Okay.
was
Uh-huh.
chosen by matrilineal lines, and the
I
authority came from a goddess, not from a god.
okay.
There were
So
women
Milo,
priests,
Milo,
some of the most. Yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we don't need to be lectured on another religion and how their theology is constructed. Like, it's like, so for me, I guess, like, I want to have this conversation, and but it seems like we agree on the sense that patriarchy is bad.
right.
And so I don't Taylor, do you have any questions for Milo here?
I don't, and I don't really have a lot of opinions on matriarchy or anything because I just don't even know. Like, yeah, like in my mind, it's definitely better than patriarchy for a couple of reasons, but is like I don't know. That's like kind of my only opinion on it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Milo, I appreciate the call. We are gonna have to get
Okay.
to other calls, and but if you can think about maybe as you're listening to the show, and think about like maybe there's a specific question that you want to ask that we can start kind of having an analysis on, would be very helpful. And I don't mean to be like, oh, I don't want to hear about the religious thing that you were talking about.
Right.
It's just that we as hosts have to make sure that this show is entertaining in a way that we're designed to do, which is to investigate ideas. And right now we don't have
Okay.
that. So as you watch along, maybe a question will pop up and maybe we can figure out another time. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, and you've been
All
very
right.
polite.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Bye,
I appreciate
Milo.
you. Have a great rest of your night. It was nice, but there was no exploratory of an
Yeah,
idea there. So we'll
I
had
agree
to
with you.
move on. Yeah. I'm sure Maya will come up with something soon. So let's go on to are you looking at the call-in list? Is there any ones that pop out to you?
Yes. Maybe number 5.
Okay,
Because that
5-4.
one's specifically about that one's about purity culture, so maybe that one.
Sure. Let's go. Let's go with Tomris. Whatever pronouns in the US, pretty anonymous there. You're live on the line with Chewed Gum. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
So you changed.
So
I'm not
what?
sure if it was you, but yeah. When I started watching
Mhm.
the live on YouTube, there was a different title than there is now. So this might not be a good time to call, but it said
No,
something
it's okay.
about purity. You know, it said something about purity culture, which this channel is the only place I've ever heard anyone use that term. So I feel like there's another term that I would use for it that I'd be better to defend. But I kind of just wanted to ask what you mean by
Sure.
that, and I guess what your stance was. Yeah.
So do you want to go first, Taylor?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Whenever I think usually when people are talking about purity culture, they're talking about the purity culture within religion, Christianity, of like this idea of you being pure, and once you do anything sexual or act in any sexual way or whatever, that's considered like impure or sinful or shameful or whatever it might be. But it's kind of like a whole culture of things. And it's the reason the show is called Chewed Gum is because a lot of times in religion, they'll describe women once they have had sex or whatever as a ripped up piece of paper, a chewed up piece of gum, a lock that can be opened at by any key. And their point is that like you're either worthless or you're worth less, like worth less than you were before. And I know I've heard a lot of Christians do this thing where they'll like take a cake and smash it up and there's like one small piece left and they're like, "Well, this is what you have left to give your husband if you have sex before marriage." So it's I mean, they do this to men as well, but it's a bit different. Women are definitely told to take the responsibility of impure thoughts of men or their like quote unquote stumbling blocks. So just that whole culture, if you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I guess it's just kind of. Would you say that the root of your problem with what you call purity culture is like gender roles? Like,
There's a
is that like the
lot of
underlying thing that you're like criticizing, or because it's? I would say that. I mean, I guess just my response to what you just said would be, I think that there is a different, at least in the religious kind of framework that I think you're talking about. There's different expectations for men that kind of aren't really the same as for women. So I guess what you'd call purity culture. I mean, I think it's bad for men to sleep around too, but I guess for different reasons. But like, I mean, I would just say that there's an equal, if not greater, amount of responsibility for men. It's just that the things that men are responsible or excuse me, the things that men are responsible for in the kind of culture that you're talking about they're just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
I
that's
would
the
say that
purity part. Like women are held
yeah,
to
I
a higher
think
standard for being pure.
right, and I think that the gender roles do play a huge part in it because it kind of has this thing of like um the gender roles are kind of weird because it's like, oh, the men are, should be a lot of times and should and like traditional religious like culture type things where they're like, oh, well, the men should be in power, they're better leaders, blah blah blah, but at the same time they can barely control themselves sexually, so it's a woman's responsibility to not be a stumbling block, and it's a woman's responsibility to be modest, and it's a woman's responsibility. Like, it's very weird, and it also leads to a lot of, I don't know what I can say on here, but it adds to a lot of like essay culture where it's like, if a woman gets essayed, it's like, well, what was she wearing? Was she drunk? Like all that stuff. So I would say gender roles play a big role in that because they're telling one, they're telling a specific gender they're responsible for another gender, and that leads to, I think, to a ton of different issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
disagree. I mean, at least when it comes to the kind of thing you're talking about, I know more about it with Islam than I would with Christianity. But in Islam, the whole thing of protecting the modesty of women, that comes primarily from men. That doesn't come primarily from women. The thing about women, wearing, covering their faces and all that kind of stuff, or not their faces, you know what I mean? The thing with that is that it is so that men, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's so meant that men are less distracted. But if you actually read if you actually look at Islamic theology and you actually read the Quran, the primary thing that is behind that is that men need to be principled, and need to be oriented towards the good, and among other things, they can't just make an axiom out of fulfilling their primal instincts. You know what I mean?
But
I mean, I think
that's
that's
still-
yeah. Go ahead.
it's still the same thing. I mean, are you Islamic? Are you
That's not where
a
I'm
Muslim?
coming from with this. I'm not making a religious argument right now.
I get it, but the fact is, a lot of the purity culture, even in secular society, in a lot of ways, in the patriarchy of the United States, is based in a lot of the religious arguments of purity. And even I was a Pentecostal for a short period of time, and I was also Catholic before that. There is a lot of modesty involved with it. You're supposed to be shamed. All of the different things that exist is mainly policing women in more than men. And even if you don't want to take the religious argument for it, Taylor said it right. Like, a woman who has more sexual partners is considered, slutty or loose or chewed gum or whatever you want to say. But a man who does that is considered a player, right? It's like, oh wow, you can get around, you can pick up the girls, you know what I mean? It's ingrained in everything, and women are meant to be shamed for having the same sexual needs as men do, but men don't have to deal with it. You look at it with bodily autonomy laws, women are legislated against, while men can, they don't have to get vasectomies or anything if they have a child or whatever. This is the thing that we specifically are talking about when it comes to purity. We don't have the same bodily autonomy as men do, and it's all based in that purity culture. And you said you disagree. What do you disagree with?
If anything, the kind of what you're talking about with purity culture with women, I don't really think the standard that men should be held to is that much different than that. But like I said,
really,
you could make an argument.
So what happens when you masturbate and you spill your seed versus a woman who takes, that gets an abortion or takes birth control? Why are there laws about, why are people musing about ending birth control for women, but they're not trying to stop men from procreating out of wedlock?
I'm not
that's a huge disparity.
I don't.
How is that even close to the same?
You're comparing you're comparing men masturbating to abortions?
I am.
Well, let's say we can.
Go ahead.
And let's say we compare it to.
I don't
let's
quite
say we compare it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
let's say we compare it to
birth
control then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it's weird that some places want to or try and get rid of birth control, or certain denominations of Christianity tell people that birth control is wrong, you shouldn't take it?
I think birth control is wrong, but I don't think comparing it to masturbation makes any sense. I think the better comparison would be comparing it to something like condoms, right?
Why is it wrong?
I don't like.
Why
I
is
mean, I
Why is
think
birth
generally
control
speaking,
wrong?
yeah, because we need more. I mean, at the end of the day, we need more people. Like, we need a higher population. We need more. So,
and
I think the idea that
so we regulate
hold on.
women to make sure that happens.
You can regulate men too. It's not really a matter of. I mean, I'm not really
When
sure
has
how
that
you
ever
regulate men in that
happened?
regard, but
Exactly,
what whatever
because it
happened?
doesn't even
No, you just
like regulating men's procreation. Well, I'm just saying, like the idea of regulating men's procreational ability isn't even in the realm of thought for most people. But it's really easy
here it
to
is.
say women should be able to have birth control because we want to make sure we increase the population of humanity, and it's always on the shoulders of women to be forced into pregnancy, and never on the shoulders of men to forcing them to have pregnancy. You know what I mean?
There's
Does
been
that make
countries.
sense?
No, because there's been countries that have banned condoms. I don't know what else you'd expect from men besides that. Like, I don't know how much further you can go, like, just biologically, right?
Do you think that it would be
there have been bans on condoms before. That has happened in plenty of places.
Okay, so if we take away things like birth control and condoms for the sake of needing more people on the earth, do you really think that's going to work out well if the people who are trying not to have kids are like having kids? You think that's going to be a good thing?
It would be a. You're asking if it'd be a good thing if people who wouldn't otherwise have kids
Who
have
are
kids? Is that you're asking?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
people who don't want to have kids, they end up having kids. You think that would be a good thing?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything you can there's no situation you can put someone in, and there's nothing that can happen to a person that would make their birth like a bad thing, if that makes sense. So
So
if
you're
like
okay with like
that,
you're okay with like kids going into families or being born to parents that do not want them at all. Like, don't you think that would lead to a lot of bad things, or maybe overflowing of kids in the foster care system and stuff like that? That doesn't bother you at all? Just as long as we have more bodies?
well, yeah, I wouldn't look at a kid in foster care and be like, yeah, your parents just should have gotten rid of you, man. Like, your life isn't worth living. Like,
It's
that's not
not.
Well,
like
No, no, no.
Thomas,
No, no,
a
no.
normal
We're not
reaction
talking.
to
We're
seeing the
not.
problems that
No,
children
no,
have. Right?
no. We're not talking about getting rid of. We're talking about never creating in the first place. Those are two different things.
It's the same principle, though, right?
No, it's
no.
not.
How?
If What do you mean how? Like if someone doesn't want a
The
kid,
influence.
or they
Yeah, go
know
ahead,
they
yeah.
wouldn't be a good parent, or they know they don't have the resources to, provide a child with a good life, why on earth do you think they should have a kid?
Because the kids I'm
That
just going to keep using the foster care example. The kids in foster care are better off alive than dead. Like, they're better off having been brought into the world as opposed to
they
having
would
not been brought
never
into the
be
world.
dead.
Like, all else equal.
They would never be dead because they
Okay,
never existed.
so then they're better existing
Yeah.
than not existing, if that's the vocabulary you want to use. Like,
Wait,
they're better
like, do
having
you
No,
think
I
existed than
don't
having never
agree.
existed. Yeah.
No, I don't
Yes.
agree with that, Thomas. Like, you just think that there's like this queue of people that are just waiting their next shot at life. Like I don't like you got to think about like how absurd that argument eventually becomes, right? It's like, oh well,
Well,
these people in high school, they're hooking up, so they should probably have a baby because if they use a condom, then they should have had a baby instead. So therefore, everybody who uses a condom is killing somebody. Like, that's wild to think about, right? And then to go back even further of like
not,
the idea of like, oh, if a 10-year-old was forced to have a child because they were unable to consent to the sex that was put upon them, like all of a sudden they're okay to have a kid because it's better in Thomas's point of view to have a 10-year-old have a kid. Like, I don't understand the logic there.
the logic. Let me just.
Do you
There's a. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, what do you
What?
believe that a 10-year-old should be forced to have a child?
If they're pregnant, yes. I mean, if let me correct myself. If they're
Really?
pregnant and if there is like, well, no, hold on. If there's and like if it's a 10-year-old, this is I guess probably what would happen. But if they're like at a risk of like at a legitimate risk of like having like some serious complication or dying or something, obviously it'd be better to terminate the pregnancy, right? If that isn't the case,
But
then
what
yeah.
about the life? What about the life, Thomas? Like, are you okay with that? Like that's the silly thing, right, Thomas? Like your point of view is so myopic, where it's like, oh,
What's
only in this sliver of myopic means short-sighted. And so basically the idea is that you're like, oh, in this particular case, I, Thomas, agree that this should not happen. But in other cases, anybody who is like dating or hooking up, they should have a kid, regardless if they have like all this type of stuff. Because the second that people that are hooking up don't have a kid, they're robbing somebody of a life. Like that, like there are so many layers of things that you are saying that is wild, because that's essentially saying the slippery slope becomes that, oh, these two married people that have the ability to have children don't have children, so therefore we should force them to have children, is a wild way to think, because who's going to legislate that? Who's going to force couples to have kids because they're taking a life if they don't?
You're responding to a lot of things I didn't say. I didn't say we should force.
Well,
if you don't want to have
logic.
a kid, don't have sex. Like,
I want
if
to
you don't wanna have a
respond
kid, don't have sex.
directly to something that you
That's
said.
simple.
I'm sorry. It really, Josie is too polite to say this, but it is disgusting that you think a 10-year-old who has had something horrifically violent happen to her should have another horrifically violent and permanently traumatizing thing happen to her. There is no such thing as a 10-year-old who's pregnant who gets to have an easy, low-risk pregnancy. It's fundamentally high risk.
Yeah.
Their bodies are not designed for it, and it is vile and disgusting that you would say that.
Yeah, and if the mother is going to die in the process, then obviously it makes sense to terminate the pregnancy, right? I'm saying that even if theoretically, even if the child was like assaulted or something, killing a random person that had nothing to do with it, that doesn't solve the issue. It just adding violence on top of violence that already happened. That doesn't solve anything.
The violence is going through the pregnancy, Thomas. The violence is going through it to have forever. Like, do you not think that there's a permanent damage that happens when you have a child? Did you know that the regret rate of pregnancy is higher than any other surgical care in the entire country? Like you have to realize that as a, this is the whole point about what we started with the whole conversation about purity, is the fact that women are forced to do the thing no matter what. And it is regardless of the consequences, regardless if it's her choice, it's essentially that is your worldview. And the thing that really just gets me is that you said on this call, and maybe if you want to correct the record as well, you said on this call that if somebody doesn't have a child, that is the same as killing them.
I didn't say that.
You did.
If you're talking about the foster care thing, where I might have just misspoken.
No,
but,
you literally said that if someone is unable to have a child because of finances, because of bad parenting they think they may have, or whatever reason that a couple decides that I'm not going to have a child, that all of a sudden that is equivalent to killing somebody or abortion.
It's not. No, if I insinuated that, and after the call, I guess you can make a clickbaity clip of me saying that or something. But if I said that, I misspoke. What I meant to say is that it's better for the parents that you just said, right? Where they don't have a lot of money and they don't want to have a kid and all that. It's better for them to have a kid than not to have a kid. That being said, if they choose not to have a kid, again, if they're not aborting a kid that's already been created, then no, they're not killing someone.
So, my question is why is it more important for kids to be born than not? Is my question. Because then I can go from there, because I just don't even agree with that. So I guess I'm wondering why it's more important for us to have more bodies on this planet. Why do you think it's more important?
Yeah, if you think life is a good thing, then that follows. If you don't, I'm not sure what your position on that would be, but my personal position that gets me there is life is good, being born is good, existence is good.
Why?
Therefore, having more existences. Why is existence good?
Why? Yeah.
I mean, you can keep asking that all day. At a point, you just kind of have to have an axiom, right? Like, there's things that are
No,
good
no,
and
no,
No,
no.
no, I'm
exist
You
and
can
asking,
be.
like,
ask why.
is it for, like, is it because you think that God wants there to be more people? Is it because you think we need people contributing to the economy? Like, that's my question, is, like, what is your
No.
reason?
So why?
Yeah, I mean, it's. Oh, I mean, first, this is an axiom. So the whole point, I mean, the word axiom means that you can't ask why to it, right? So at a certain, and like everyone has an
Wait,
axiom.
what?
Like your axiom probably isn't the same.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
that's what it means.
Are you familiar with epistemology?
Yes,
Right.
the study of
Okay.
knowledge.
So, well, it's how you get to the knowledge that you believe. So the idea that something is unable to be investigated with the question why is not essentially something that exists. You can't just be like, oh, you can't question it. You just have to believe it is not a actual thing.
That's not. No, everyone who's ever. I mean, I can flip the script on you if you want, but no, everyone has axioms.
Okay, flip it.
Everyone has
Flip
like
it.
a baseline. I'm sorry.
Flip
Okay,
the
why
script for me.
should? Okay, what's the position you hold? Any position doesn't matter.
I believe that women should have bodily autonomy. Let's start with there.
Why?
Because I believe that a person's right to choose what happens to their own body is more important to than anything else.
Why?
Because when we actually think about human people and the individual selves that they are, that we need to be able to allow people to have that autonomy. Because the second we lose our autonomy is the second we no longer have control of ourselves.
Why does that matter? Why does having control of ourselves matter?
So when you ask why does it matter? You asking? Is that what you're asking?
You said that
Because
you said that the
I
reason
can
for the last
answer.
thing. Yeah.
Sure. So essentially the reason that I come up with this situation is essentially that I weigh the balance of morality on a person's ability to make choices about their own autonomy. As long as it hurts no one else, they have the ability to control what happens to their body. And that is a better society to live in when people have that than people who don't have that. That is how I come to believe that point. That is what it is.
Okay.
Now, if you want to challenge my core fundamental concept, that is a different question than just saying, why all the things, but you have to be able to have a conversation and ask specific questions to my fundamental belief set. But we can talk about the morality of those things, and that's how I am able to be grounded in my belief outside of anything else. Taylor, it looks like you wanted to say something.
I was just gonna say, you should have somewhat of an answer if you're telling people they shouldn't take birth control and this and that, and they should have kids. You're If someone asks you why, it's pretty weak to just be like, because more life good. Like, you need to have a little bit more of
Well,
a, like, reason, right?
well,
Like,
no,
that's weird to me.
this goes back to. Well, no, and there is a reason. This goes back to Descartes, right? That it's greater to exist than not to exist. It is better to be than not to be. This is the most fundamental philosophical truth that the Western tradition has ever given us. Is that like existence beats non-existence. Existence is greater
But
than non-existence.
not
The reason.
everybody
Wait,
agrees
hold
with
on.
that.
Well, yeah, but we live in a society where we at least have a basic idea of what's right and what's wrong. That's why murdering people and assaulting people is wrong. Because as a society,
That's
we've
not what we're talking
objectively
about.
understood that that's. No, it
Yeah.
is. It's the same
You're
reason.
conflating. No, it's
It's
not the
not the
same
same
reason.
reason. You like I
Sure it
know
is.
you keep
Yeah.
saying that, like, I know you keep saying that you're not saying that it's the same as, like, someone being dead if they know they don't exist, but you keep comparing it to these things that are like that, and it's just not. If you're having children and you can barely even, like, put food on the table for them, what kind of life is that? Like, just life for the sake of life? Like, that, like, a lot
Yeah.
of people would disagree with you and say, "What?" Like, that's not like a kid growing up in extreme poverty or a kid growing up with abusive parents.
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who would disagree and say, no, I don't think my parents should have had kids because they don't even want me or they can't take care of me, like, or whatever it might be. There's a lot of people who would disagree with you.
Yeah.
Isn't it just kind of a isn't it just kind of a fundamentally, I guess you could say, a misanthropic view to, I'm not necessarily saying this is what you're saying, but how I'm interpreting it is that you would look at, kids that are being abused, or starving kids in Africa and all that, and say that it would have been better if they have never come into existence. Like, them existing is a bad thing because they shouldn't have been they shouldn't have been created in the first place. Like, that's what you're saying. I mean, you're saying in different words.
Thomas,
That's
Well,
what I
my
understand
thing
what you're
is,
saying.
my thing is, I wouldn't be telling other people they need to create life just to create life. These
Yeah,
are like two different
exactly.
things.
Well,
Like, I'm not telling people, oh, you should create life for the sake of it. If somebody does have kids and they're like living in poverty or whatever, yes, that happens. But I'm not advocating for those people to have kids for the sake of having kids. That's like the difference.
Yeah, Thomas. We can look at a
I guess. I mean, you
systemic
could.
problem and say, hey, look, the reason that there's so many kids in foster care, or the reason all of these type of things exist, we can say, hey, maybe we should stop the ability for this systemic problem to exist that is leading to this other issue. We are not trying to say the people who exist shouldn't exist. That is a completely different thing. But we can, as society, look at things and be like, maybe this isn't a good thing. So, for example, when you have a complete ban on birth control in particular, you have more people that are raised in the foster system. We are not trying to say that the people that are born into that system are wrong. We are saying, however, that the policy that created all of those people that put more people in foster care is wrong. There is a different way to be. It's hard on systems, soft on people, Thomas. Have you ever heard that statement?
I don't know if I've heard it worded that exact same way, but I know what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, so you can be mad at a system that brings misery, but you cannot be mad at the victims of that misery and say, "Oh, this is your fault because you were born." That's not what we're saying.
I think we're kind of talking past each other, because I would agree with you that all of the problems, such as not having enough resources for children not having access to food or water, or being mistreated or something, all of those things are bad. And if there's any systems, such as a foster care system that doesn't work, such as not distributing resources appropriately, anything like that, I'm 100% on board with you that those are problems that we need to do away with it. The problem in question, though, isn't like the problem in question is that they don't have resources and that they're being mistreated. That's the problem. The problem isn't that they exist, or that they started existing at some point. Like, we have enough resources to take care of everyone, at least right now. Maybe if we have like 200 billion people, it's a different question. But like right now, we have enough
So do you believe in
we have
healthcare
enough
for
money,
all?
we have enough people. I'm sorry?
Do you believe in healthcare for all? Like everybody gets
I
free
believe
healthcare in the United States?
a civilized society doesn't charge people money when they get sick. Yeah.
Just
Okay,
because
well, that's
those
good.
resources exist doesn't mean everybody has access to them. It doesn't really matter if the
Yeah.
resources exist if people don't have
No, I agree.
access to them.
But
Like,
you're not. I
Yeah.
agree with you, but you're not addressing my point. That any sort of thing,
which
if
is
there's a child, I mean, at least in America, just because that's the country I live in and that's what I care about. But no, in the United States of America, if right now there's a child being born who is in a less than advantageous situation for themselves, the government has an obligation to help that child. Like, point blank. If you live in this country, you deserve a decent quality of life. I 1000% agree with you. The point is that the reason that we can't give children, or not even can't, the reason that we don't give children in certain situations a decent life isn't because it's not because they exist. It's because we can't, it's because we don't distribute things appropriately. It's not because we have too many children being born. That's not the problem.
But you should, like, I think where this isn't making sense to me is there's a difference between caring for the kids that people decide to have and then encourage it, like saying everyone needs to have kids. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
Because
it
like
doesn't.
having kids for the sake of having kids is like how we get some of the worst parents and some of the worst situations is just because, well, we had a kid because we felt like it. Like, it wasn't like a thought through, like, am I ready for this amount? Like, that is the biggest decision you could ever make in your entire life, is deciding to bring another life in this world. And you're acting as
Sure.
as if every single person should just do it. That's insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this
Do
a
you
couple
think
times,
every
but
single
there's
person
no.
is a
Yeah.
do you think every single person has what it takes to be a parent? Do you genuinely believe that?
I mean, at an extreme level, like theoretically, if there's a parent who's like on, has a substance abuse problem, and like if their kid's born, it's going to start abusing it or something. No, that kid is better off not with that parent. But that being said, that kid isn't better off not existing. The kid's better off in foster care than not existing. And I mean, if you're just to go along with the hypothetical you gave, yes, like theoretically, a kid is better off being born and being mistreated by their parents than not being born in the first place.
No,
Like life is. That's
no,
ridiculous.
Thomas,
That's
that
so
is
ridiculous. That is so misanthropic
I
and
think what
bad.
you're
That's
saying
so
is ridiculous.
no.
I think what you're saying is
Yeah,
ridiculous. If
yeah,
a parent had
yeah.
me, if I was born, and which I don't want to give TMI, but let's just say I know what it's like to have a parent who didn't want to be a parent. I genuinely
Sure.
believe they should not have had children. I don't give a shit if I wasn't here. I wouldn't have ever known. I wouldn't have had the consciousness
Yep.
to be like, damn, I missed out on living. Like, that would have
Yeah.
never been a thing. They should have
Wait, so
not
hold on.
had a
So
kid. If they
go
weren't
ahead. Yeah, sorry.
prepared to be a parent, they shouldn't have had a kid. You need to think to yourself, am I ready to take on this responsibility? You shouldn't just be popping out kids because you think, oh, this world needs more life. That's insane to me. That's an insane
Yeah.
stance.
Can I just ask, like, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but are you saying that are you indifferent to your own life? Like, do you not care that you exist or that you
It's
don't
not
exist?
her
It's
life.
not if since I'm already sentient, because I'm sentient, most humans have this thing of like, I'm alive, I'm gonna make the most out of it, or I'm just gonna
Yeah,
live because I'm
yeah,
already living. Yeah, if I never
yeah,
existed, yeah, I wouldn't have had these thoughts. Do you know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
would have never occurred, so
yeah,
it wouldn't have mattered.
yeah. I think we kind of, and like, you probably have other calls in your take. Like, I think we kind of, I think,
Yeah.
and not just me. I mean, I think I'm kind of a representative of like a large school of thought, and you're a representative of your school of thought. That I think, like, and you can get to this without being religious. That like life is good. Like life is objectively good. That doesn't mean that there aren't bad things that people experience, but at the end of the day, no, the best thing anyone ever did for me was give me life, like point blank, period. It doesn't matter
Thomas.
how many bad things I've gone through. Like, I want to give that to other people.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of
just
where
yeah,
I
I
come from. I don't
definitely
know. Yeah.
I don't
I
agree, and I think
disagree.
there are a lot of people. I think there are a lot of people, if they were born to certain parents who weren't ready or didn't treat them well, a lot of those people, if you've noticed, don't end up having kids, and there's a reason for that. They're like, they
Yeah.
realize it's not just like, oh, bringing kids in this world is more important than being able to be a parent or be able to give them a childhood. So we're just obviously
Yeah.
going to fundamental that you're like, oh, more life is good. I don't necessarily believe that at all.
Yeah, and Thomas, we do have to get to other callers, and I will say this as my last thought on this, and then we're gonna have to let you go, is it's easy for people who have life to say that, yeah, life is good when you have no ability to argue with people who have never existed. So it already is a fallacious way to look at the world of only being able to survey people who are alive and have existed and are in existence to ask your question, is life good? How do you ask the people who have never existed? You can't. So therefore, the answer is always going to be life is good in that way. So, but anyways, I'm going to have to let you go and call back another time. And also, don't say that 10-year-olds should have kids. So, all right. Have a great rest of your night. Bye.
Bye.
See you.
God.
Oh
Uh,
my. The thing
okay.
is,
All right.
I feel like I could get dark with that topic of like, well, obviously not everybody on this planet like thought it was great that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get too
Yeah.
dark with it, but obviously there are plenty of people who wish they weren't like brought into this world under certain circumstances. So this idea that like, oh, everybody is so glad to be alive, like that's just untrue. But Yeah.
it's a very untrue statement, and it's all based on people who are already alive. Like you can't
Yeah.
argue the fact that people who don't exist are sad that they don't exist when they don't
Right.
exist. There's no one to
Right,
be
right.
sad that they don't exist. Like don't compare yourself
Exactly.
to a non-existing individual because you're
Right.
always gonna win that fight.
Also, it's
You're
like
always
we're
gonna win that
comparing
fight.
a group of people who do not experience anything and therefore do not experience suffering versus a group of hypothetical people who are experiencing extreme suffering. So I just feel like obviously like our worldview is kind of based on suffering or like, positive or
Right.
negative outcomes are based on like the subjective experiences involved. And so if there is no subjective experience, that's value neutral. It can't be a bad thing. Whereas if somebody is experiencing pain and suffering, that is
Yeah.
quantifiably bad.
That's a great
Yeah,
point.
exactly. So let's go ahead and take. Let's see. I'm. Let's go ahead and take Olivia. So we're gonna take Olivia, she, her from Arizona. Thank you so much, Olivia, for calling in on the line. You are live. Looks like you want to talk about religion appealing to conservative women, and you are a theist yourself. So tell us, what would you like to chat about?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm also still kind of reeling from that last call. I couldn't believe that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Good times.
Okay. So yeah, I am a theist, so I feel like it's worth noting, just for like context sake. I am a leftist, so. So my point when it comes to, well, okay, so my the prompt that I listed before was specifically that, from what I've observed, women, particularly conservative women, are attracted to Christianity and like stay in it because it makes them feel. At the end of the day, it comes down to them making them feel vulnerable, because the whole like Christianity is very misogynistic and driven by standard gender roles and norms, and it is appealing to a lot of women to feel protected. It's appealing to anyone really to feel protected, but especially to women because there's so much that we're brought up on to fear in the world, essentially. Just like the difference of a woman being able to walk down the street at 7 p.m. versus how a man feels walking down the street at 7 p.m., right? And I think that there's a bit of a sadistic loop that ends up happening with Christianity, especially with white women in particular, where you can't feel protected unless there's a threat to feel afraid of, is kind of the crux of my argument. So because of that, that's why you see these loops with Christianity and right-wing talking points where they're always trying to find a boogeyman to be afraid of, because there needs to be someone that you get protected from. And that's where the toxic element for women comes into it, because it feels good to be protected, to feel like you are being preserved from something, like there's a threat that someone is defending you from. And
So
that's a bit of
I
a
want to jump in.
Yeah.
I think that you're painting with a very, very broad brush. I think that there is, some people who feel that they need to be protected and vulnerable, and I think that there's a lot of like even on the right wing mentalities of oh, I need to be protected from the criminal outside. That's why I vote Republican for more police or whatever. But I think that there's a lot of reasons I think that conservative women are appealing to religion in a lot of ways. A lot of it is they want to feel better than other people. A lot of times there is the protection aspect, like you said, but it also, there's a lot of facets to it. I would say there's a lot of religious conservative women who don't want to be protected. They're on platforms, they're going out, they're doing their thing. So I guess for me, I just don't think that the root cause is only that. Taylor, what are your thoughts?
Um, I do see it play a part when it comes to something specific, which is like convincing women they need to submit to men because they paint this picture of like, oh, you need to play this certain role because I'm doing my role of protecting you, which like kind of makes me laugh because I'm like, how often are you in some kind of life or death situation and you're protecting your wife versus you want her to play this role of like tending to you all the time, which is an everyday affair. And it's kind of like, yeah, they use this like a lot of times they use like a pretend threat or like a hypothetical of I'm the leader and I need to protect this family. I need to protect you. And it's like, from what, first of all? Second of all, the chances of like an actual physical threat happening are very low. But I do think they use that reasoning sometimes when it comes to like why they should submit to men. I just think a lot of times it's like a pretend threat because they do this like I mean we see this in politics too, like what you were saying with like immigrants and criminal like just like very making things very hyperbolic and like oh we need these big men traditionally masculine men to play these like traditional gender roles because there's this boogeyman. I think sometimes it does play a role, but yeah, there is definitely like I think so many different reasons why women may be in religion, and I honestly think the number one reason is pretty boring, and I think it's indoctrination, just because that was me when I was like in the evangelical space. It was really nothing other than indoctrination, which is like a boring thing, but like if your brain is developing, you're a child and you're told the same things over and over and over again as if it's fact, you just believe it. You don't really think much about it. And and it's interesting because I'm not even one to fall into those like traditional roles of like how women should act or whatever. So it wasn't that for me, but it was very much just like indoctrination.
And those are very, very valid points. I see where you both are coming from there. I didn't mean to. I guess I should clarify. I wasn't saying that that is the only reason for why women are drawn to religion, but I do feel like it is more significant than you two are saying, because I don't think this is a thing that most, if any, religious women really think about consciously very much. Like when I was a Christian, I didn't think about this kind of thing. But it's the thing that
Are you a Christian now?
No,
Are you a Christian
spiritual,
now?
but not a Christian.
Okay. What was the reason you were Christian before?
I mean, I was raised into it.
Yeah, right. Like it's that boring reason, right? I think
Right.
that people.
And I see what you're saying, but
yeah, I think people
sorry,
find
I just want to kind of
reasons.
piggyback on that. If that's okay.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not being misconstrued here. You're
Go for
right.
it. Sure.
That is like the easiest way to get into it. But I feel that what I'm trying to say is I think that element of feeling protected is what keeps a lot of women from leaving it, from being able to think more critically about it and like try and get out of it. I feel that is like something that keeps them in that mindset.
Do you mean like being told that that's kind of their role they play as it like the like they need a leader, they need like a man as like a protector type? Is that what you mean? Like how they do their
No.
roles in life? Or you mean like they're
No.
you really think Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Taylor.
No, you're fine.
Yeah,
Go.
no. What I'm talking about something like deeper than that, where it is the threat of what happens if there isn't one, not that they need one. It's the idea that if you the feeling protected and safe is the positive stimulus that comes after being afraid of a threat. So what I'm trying to say is that is the thing that gets them, I guess you could call it, I guess if we're going to talk about it in terms of like addiction, that would be the thing that gives them the endorphins. It gives us the idea of we're safe here.
I want to jump in here. How is that different from men being afraid of going to hell when they leave religion?
Because there's not, like, you can't see hell.
Well, I mean, that's where a lot of fear comes from of leaving religion, is not spending eternal life in heaven, which is basically the root of most of the fear of leaving religion, because of the what if I'm wrong situation. And I think that spans across anybody who's theist. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I think that well, I'm speaking purely from my own perspective here, but I know that it was always really difficult for me to perceive or I guess imagine what hell would actually be like. Obviously, there's all kinds of horrible stories, and that's been a huge goal of Christianity for a long time, is to use that as the rod versus the carrot. But you don't.
So I guess
you can't see hell when you can see someone being assaulted.
Okay, so my question is, play it out for me. There is a conservative religious woman who lives in your worldview, and what is so in the world of, let's say, what you posited, and they are exactly like what you're saying. What is the thing they're afraid of when they leave religion?
They're afraid of not feeling like there's going to be someone to protect them, because
who is the someone? Who is the someone?
Usually men, but ultimately it doesn't really matter, because it's about feeling protected, period. That's why the whole thing with bathrooms is effective with conservative women, because fear-mongering builds up this threat of trans women in bathrooms, where
but Olivia, now we're conflating two things. You were talking about religion, and now we're talking about conservatives, right? Like those are very different things, because like for me it's like, yes, but that is a secular way of looking at it as well. My specific question was about religious women. What are they afraid of? So are they afraid that men aren't going to be there for them if they're not religious?
Well, would you agree that religious men are more likely to do something drastic in the heat of a moment like that?
Wait, so you're saying that they would be afraid? So you're saying that the conservative woman in your worldview is afraid to leave religion because they're afraid of what the man would do to them if they left religion?
No. Sorry, I must have phrased that poorly. What I'm trying to say is the woman would be afraid, the hypothetical woman would be afraid of leaving religion, because then she wouldn't have someone who is willing to aggressively defend her against threats that she perceives, even though those threats are erroneous. Because people, like men who are not religious, are typically a bit more, have a bit more self-control, and are like a little more rational about what they do.
I think my final stance on it is kind of what I said before, is from my experience, I'm not sure if that's enough of a reason to keep women in, if that would cause them to stay in religion, but I do think that's a big way they get women to adopt the submitting thing, like of what the dynamic of the relationship looks like in a Christian marriage, if that's what you want to call it. Like that's how they get women to be like, oh, this is your role and this is my role because there's this perceived threat, whatever it might be, whether bigoted or maybe it's like literal, like a robber comes in your house, whatever the hell it is. Um, I do think it gets women to accept the submission role. I don't I mean, there's no way for me to know if it, like, if women stay in religion purely for that. I'm not sure, but I do think it plays a role for the dynamic that they're told to have in their marriage.
Yeah. Are you
Okay.
But
there,
yeah, that's
Olivia?
really my only
Yeah, I
opinion
mean, I
on it.
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be like very, contrarian in the conversation. I'm just investigating your point of view on this point because I know that there's a lot of left-leaning women that are religious that also go into religion looking for a man or that type of situation as well. Like, so I think that it's not necessarily just a religious thing. I think it's just how some people are kind of like approaching a different thing for their own different reasons. And I guess that's why I was investigating the claim, because I think that there's a lot of reasons that religion I would like to see the study of like people who are like born again Christians that are, or people who are like who have either never been in religion and then are in religion randomly. I would like to see that, but I think most people in religion are religious because that's where they were raised to be. And maybe there is a question of they stay religious for certain reasons, but you know being deconstructed myself and working with other humans and talking to a lot of people, you would be so surprised how many reasons people have on holding on to their faith and holding on to why they believe that they do. And so that's kind of why I think I was pushing back on the idea of like they are because of this, versus like there's a lot of reasons that people make up for themselves of why they are doing a certain thing, such as staying religious. And I think we've probably talked about them all on the line at some point on the shows that we have, because there's just so many reasons people grasp onto it. And it's hard to say. I think that if you were to replace your word religion and just say conservatism is appealing to conservative women because it makes them feel, safe from the immigrants or the trans people or that type of stuff. I think that is more effective than the religious side of it. But again, there's so many hairs that we could split on this conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and both those points make a lot of sense, especially that last part, Josie.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming. It could very well be that just my own personal experiences making my thoughts
Yeah.
biased in that regard, but I do definitely agree with what you say about it being applicable to conservative women. So
Mhm.
maybe I think in the future I'll lead with that kind of framework instead, rather than making it
Yeah.
about Christianity or something like that.
No worries. No, I really appreciate the call, and I love exploring ideas. It's a because when somebody has a claim and comes on the show, it's very fun to go over those claims. And so yeah, thank you for joining us in that exploration of your claim.
Thank you, and
Really
I
appreciate it.
thank you both for helping me explore it a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thank you. All right.
Take care. Bye.
So Taylor, I'm gonna let you take the next call. I'm gonna have to hop off for like 5 to 10 minutes. I will be right back. I just have to do this one little thing. And Taylor, you're on mute right now. I don't know if you know that.
Nope, I did not know that. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, for sure. Yeah, I was like, I think you're either very quiet or I can't hear a word you're saying. So go ahead and pick the next call, and then I'll start it up, and then I'm gonna jump off.
Okay, bring in Greg because I saw him call like at the very beginning and then dropped.
Sure.
So,
All
yeah.
right.
Oh, is that me?
Yep, that's you. Hey,
That's you.
Greg, him from Illinois. Thank you for calling. You're live on the line. You're going to be on with just Taylor for a moment, and I'll be jumping on shortly.
Sounds good.
Hi, Greg. What did you want to talk about?
Well, I did have a claim I wanted to make as a theist, but before that, that the topic of the video or the topic of the live show, I guess whatever you want to call it, saying should purity be abolished? I'm completely honest with you. That sparked my curiosity only because I didn't even know what that meant. It seems like what is that claim? Like that makes sense what I'm saying, but
Are you kind of like asking what we're referring to with purity or like what that statement means, like point blank period? Because I think the point of that is like getting rid of purity culture, if you know what that is.
oh, okay. I think I might have more of an
Mhm.
idea then. I thought like I'm just seeing the word purity, and I'm like abolish
Mhm.
purity. Like some people value purity more than others. Like some people value it a great deal. And so like what does that even mean to abolish? But you mean purity. So when you say purity culture, are you referring to people
And
who
even
actually no, I guess I still don't understand. Go ahead. Yeah, I guess I still don't understand. Yeah, go ahead.
so like even the idea that okay, so I don't think there's anything wrong obviously for people who want to wait to have sex until marriage and stuff like that. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with it, but I think a lot of the culture around it is very damaging and harmful, and I even think calling it purity is harmful in general because saying someone is pure for not having sex or is it impure for having sex, I think is super harmful and shame based, and so I think we should get rid of that narrative altogether. I have no problem with people who, only want to have sex with one person their whole life or wait to do that or whatever. That's no problem. But kind of this idea that you're pure if you don't and you're impure if you do, I think that is a entirely shame-based narrative that does a lot of harm.
Okay. That's interesting. I just want to point out from my perspective growing up, purity didn't necessarily mean like sex before marriage or versus sex after marriage. It wasn't that how do you put it? It wasn't that particular. It's more of like a direction kind of thing. So like you could have sex before marriage, but then live a more pure lifestyle after that, or you could wait until after you get married and have sex, and then you live like a life of debauchery or something like that. So it's more of like a direction that you go in more so than but that's interesting. You pointed out that you think that purity shouldn't even be you said they shouldn't call it purity. Did you say that
Yeah, I don't think I think calling
or use
it
the word go ahead.
purity. Yeah, I think like calling it purity or referring to someone as pure is just I think it's gross. Honestly,
Oh,
I think it's pretty harmful and based on shame because like you're telling people that they're pure impure based on specific actions they do or don't do, which I don't think is helpful whatsoever.
okay, interesting. Okay. I mean, you could use a different word for it if it's that word that bothers you. I mean, is there? Let's see how I want to frame this. Do you think there's? How do I put this? Do you think there's room to advise someone the benefits in a non-shameful way of living a more pure lifestyle that is coming from a place of sincerity in terms of caring for their well-being, or do you think that would be like intrinsically shameful, even despite the intentions of the person giving that suggestion or sense of direction, especially so that the person's is looking for it or asking for it?
Um, I feel like that's a that has a very nuanced answer that's kind of hard to answer because obviously there are some people who talk about purity because they genuinely think that it's like the right way to live and they want other people to live that way type thing. Um, I
Yeah.
think that it's a lot of it, especially when it's coming from something like Christianity, which is like what we're usually talking about when we're talking about purity culture. A lot of
hmm
times, I think it almost always has to be shame based because of the ideas around sin and what sin is, and how we're kind of a lot of times in Christianity you're told like not to trust yourself or like you're sinful, you're wicked, or you're deserving of hell. So I think the entire base of it is already pretty shame based a lot of times. Now I think obviously people can, talk about um the risks that come with having sex,
hmm
and like how to be safe or what they might be risking. And I think you could talk about it in better ways than others, but I do think when it comes to religion and this idea of like sexual purity, I think it almost is always going to be shame based, even if some ways are better than others, if that answers your question.
I think a little. So you're saying that because of, are you saying maybe because of a traditional or historical perspective within Christianity, that the way that sin has been used as a way of, or going hand in hand with shame. So if you say someone is sinning, there's an inherent like shame component to that, and so because of that history, there is an intrinsic quality to this being shameful if you use the word purity or something like, or something along those lines. And I think it's interesting because I mean, to me, like, sin, I mean, even as a Christian, like, sin isn't necessarily shameful. It's something we all have. It's something we all do. It's inextricable, right, from the human condition. So it's not something that should be used as a bludgeon in that way. And when I think of purity, by the way, I didn't even think of it only in the context of, I guess when you say purity culture, it probably is. You're probably referring to that being used largely in a sexual context. But to me, like when I think of purity, I think of, other types of addictions, like alcohol addiction or, drug addiction or things like that. Purity to me, just broadly speaking, means going in the direction of separating yourself from those vices. And for some people more than others, that can be obviously that can be pretty helpful. Um, and so that's kind of the direction I was coming from. But do you think that in some Christian circles, maybe certain non-denominational Christian circles, that there is no that sin doesn't go inherent with shame, or at the very least, purity doesn't go inherently with shame within some cultures? And I don't want to spend forever talking about this. I apologize. It's just last minute, the topic of this video, I misunderstood it, and one thing led to another, so I was asking the questions. But
Um, like I said, I think that some teachings of purity culture can be like worse than others, but I do want to point out the fact that in the Bible, so like obviously Christians are going by the Bible. In the Bible itself, it views
mhm,
women as less valuable once they have a sexual encounter. For example, the Old Testament, when a woman is essayed, she's
mhm,
already considered like tainted goods, like damaged goods. That's why a man has to pay the father the bride price or whatever because he already so-called quote unquote damaged her, whatever. um so the Bible itself, like the foundation of it, is already viewing women as this sexual object that if it is like touched in that way is already like tainted in some way. So in my mind there's really no way to separate those things because it exists at the foundation of what the religion is and what it's going by and how it views women. Does that make sense?
it does. I'll be honest with you. I'm not familiar with that exact verse from the Old Testament. I'm sure, though, it doesn't surprise me that there's something in there referring to that. What about the argument, though, that Old Testament would be that's not really an instruction manual. That's just historical context. And again, I don't know the exact context of that particular verse. So you might know that
So
context or that verse more than I do, to be honest with you.
So my argument would be that even though I know a lot of Christians say, they don't go by the Old Testament and that those were a law, like those were laws for a certain amount of time, those laws were still supposedly given by God himself. So he is either instructing people to act in immoral ways or he's not. So like even if you don't follow those rules anymore, if like somebody were to say, well, it's wrong to look at women that way, or it's wrong to, have those ideas surrounding women, God still commanded it to be that way. And so in my mind, that's still the same God that they are following to this day, even if they don't abide by those laws. So I guess my question is, would he command somebody to do something immoral? And most people would say no. So they would say that that was the moral thing, is like that kind of idea that women's value deteriorates based on, like, her being touched or whatever in that way. And if people are going to say, oh, that's just the time period, that really doesn't make sense to me, because in my mind, Christians always say they have this objective morality. God's morality does not change. So I don't understand why God wouldn't just say what is right and what is wrong, and instead condone or give laws on things that are immoral things to do, including things like slavery and other things in the Old Testament. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
That's a bit. Well, I mean, and you're saying in that Old Testament quote or verse, it's God who's claiming this.
Yeah,
The
it's
one you're
God
referring
giving the
to.
laws. So like, yeah, it's God giving the laws.
Okay.
So the law was, there's a couple different ones, and like the one is about what to be done if a woman is essayed, and basically what is to be done is the essayer buys the daughter from the father. So the woman is being forced to marry her attacker. So that's obviously concerning on my end.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know about that one. I mean, I more New Testament kind of person, and I mean, I was raised to believe that in many ways the New Testament kind of, how do you put it? I wouldn't say replaces the Old Testament, but it it's well, kind of, in a way. I mean, it's the New Testament is like what you go off of now. That's why we needed Jesus to begin with, because anybody with sin can't get into heaven. And I heard some of your calls last person, so I know you're already familiar with a lot of that. But you can't even get into heaven without Jesus, because we're all inherently imperfect or whatever. And so I always took that to mean that certain things in the Old Testament didn't really apply anymore after that. But no, I mean that's an, I'd have to. Do you know which? It's okay if you don't happen to know exactly which one it is, but do you happen to know which book that was within the Old Testament?
I don't know the exact verse, but I can actually look it up real quick.
Okay, not that I'm doubting you or anything.
So
I mean,
no, I mean, you should ask, like, if to make sure to double check what I'm saying. But my
yeah,
other question is, does it bother you
yeah.
that Jesus said specifically that he didn't come to abolish the law? Like, that seems to me pretty straightforward. And then when people are like, oh, we don't follow the Old Testament, we follow, the new law, there was no like really set of laws even given for like what to follow now. So that seems to be in line that with Jesus saying that I'm not here to abolish the
Mm,
law, because he didn't
okay,
give a new law. There was no new set of laws.
guy.
So like, I guess, how do
Okay.
you reconcile that?
Yeah, I know that. I got it. Yeah. So yeah, Jesus didn't come to abolish the laws, but in an informal way, I think it's pretty clear what most Christians would even agree on as far as what Jesus means, which is turn the other cheek, right? Forgiveness. That's like the biggest thing, right? And you follow the teachings. If you actually read the New Testament, he talks about how you should live your life quite a bit, right? Even if he doesn't explicitly say these are the new laws. I mean, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, right? So there's a separation there. You have to respect the state law, or at the very least, he's not commenting on that exactly, but he is talking about. I think it's pretty good about. I think the blueprint is pretty clear on how to like live your life on a daily basis. Are you saying you don't think that's clear?
Is it not
I don't
like
think it's
so? What do you
clear.
mean? Yeah, I'm sorry, Greg. I'm back. It's Josie. So
Oh, welcome.
like
It was good to have you both.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like when you talk about clarity, right? What
hmm
do you think is super clear, and why is there so much like contradiction within even other Christian sects? Like so for example, like in if you think about how like Catholics think one way, Baptists think another way, all of these different denominations, if it was so clear, wouldn't they all be reading like quite literally from the same book?
Well, I mean, they are, aren't they? Like they mostly do agree on the biggest things. They might agree on everything, right? But I mean, they agree on the most fundamental things. Like to get into heaven, it's got to be through Jesus, right? You gotta, you have to believe in him because without faith, works is dead, right? I'm pretty sure like they all like the
Mormons,
basics, right? Like
Mormons don't believe that either. So Mormons have a belief that if you were never given the opportunity to believe in Jesus, then you can still get into heaven. It's just a lower tier.
yeah, but more they have an extra book, right, with the golden discs and all that. Like it's not just the Bible for them. Like they have. Yeah.
Sure,
What
but
about
why
the
would they need that if it's so clear? All right, go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, what about like the difference between like evangelicals and like Catholics? Like evangelicals, I know so many evangelicals that just think, if you ask if you ask Jesus to come into your heart, the rest doesn't really matter. You're gonna be saved. And if you're a Catholic, you're going in and doing confessionals and stuff, and that they have different ideas of. Everybody has different ideas of like what actually accepting God or like whatever means. Like it's like a different to a lot of people. I was basically told as a Christian that Catholics were going to hell and that they weren't even
Mhm.
Christian, which is crazy looking back, but to me it seems very unclear. I also wanted to give you the Bible verse that was Deuteronomy 22:28 through 29 about that thing we were talking about earlier. But to me it just doesn't seem clear. And again, it does really bother me, the thing of Jesus saying like I'm not here to abolish the law but to fulfill it. And when people act like him saying he's going to fulfill the law means like, oh, it's done, it's over, that's it. But you can go to your job and fulfill your duties. Does that mean that that's it? Like that other people don't do the same job or that you don't go back and do the same job? Like to me it seems like that part, if he did say it, was clear that it's like he wasn't there to be done with it. I just have a hard time thinking that if that's what he was doing, was making a whole new way of living, why do you think like he would say that specifically? Because wouldn't that be confusing to everybody?
Say what? So you mean saying that he's not here to abolish the law but fulfill it? You're saying that
Yeah.
would be confusing because that would contradict some of the other things he's saying with like
Or what people believe he was doing. That would contradict people who are
okay,
like, oh, he
okay.
came here to abolish the old law.
I mean, I think I see him saying that as more of a statement that he's not politically violent. Like he's not like an activist. In that sense, it's more of like he's a pacifist. So when he says something like he's not there to abolish law, to me, I always interpret that as he's not here to like literally take on the state or like start a rebellion. That's how I've always seen it.
I
Or do you
mean,
mean?
yeah, Greg,
Go
but
ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
that's part of the unclarity, right? And that's probably one of the biggest things that people who are atheists and agnostic, they're just like, there's so many contradictions and so many ways of interpretation that it's hard to say, oh yes, this book is the truth, so therefore it is what it is. And yet, well, even when we look at the New Testament stuff with Jesus, we see these inconsistencies because this story is told by like 5-6 different people, and is interpreted in so many different ways that it's just like it isn't clear. I don't think it's ever really been clear, and I think that's the reason. I think that's the feature, not the bug. It's supposed to be unclear. That's why there are evangelicals who can say that I'm an abomination and going to hell because A, I'm trans, and B, I'm queer, and there are people who will literally die on that statement. And so for me, but when I look at Jesus's teaching, I'd be like, oh, you're supposed to love thy neighbor regardless of who they are, and you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Yet there are people out there that will use Leviticus and say that I'm an abomination, and then there are people who will use that same, believe in that same book, and will still wear mixed fibers or eat shellfish or do all these other things. So it's like, so for me, how could I take anybody seriously when they don't follow every letter of the law and they're cherry picking what they believe and don't believe?
Okay. I would just say real quick too, for what it's worth. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I see what you're saying. I kind of see what you're saying a little, because we do have. So I think what I said earlier, that they all agree on the basics. Like, they all believe that you got to follow Jesus to get into heaven, like the real big questions, right? But when it comes to like how you live your life on a daily basis, that can be pretty different depending on the type of Christian you are, or what denomination or what faction. Is that a little bit kind of what you're saying?
But there are many Christians. I know many Christian trans people, for example. I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
But they are told by other Christians that they are going to hell because they are trans. So how is that a thing when it's not just you believe in Jesus, you go to heaven? It's you believe in Jesus and the way that I want you to live your life, and then maybe you'll go to heaven if you know. And that, to me, is what makes it so inconsistent and not clear.
Okay. I mean, I would say that Christians who are saying that trans people are going to hell are not, like, that's not really being Christian. And I would say that, I mean, Jesus, I mean, obviously Jesus is not alive
But they
today,
believe in
but
Jesus,
I doubt
though,
that
Greg.
Jesus. What?
But they believe in Jesus. Isn't that the only? Isn't that the only thing that gets you into heaven?
Well, you can say you believe in Jesus. That doesn't mean you're actually following his teachings. I'm pretty
But
sure
they
Jesus
could-
doesn't hate trans people.
Sure.
But
I mean,
they
he's not
could
alive today. But
say-
if Jesus were alive today, I don't think he'd hate trans people. I mean, that doesn't sound like it.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, I feel like they could. I hear Christians say this about each other all the time. Like, they're not a true Christian. Or they're not a true Christian. But
Yeah.
don't you feel
Yeah.
like if there's like that much confusion, don't you think God should have been like clearer about things he knew people would be so like? There's like thousands upon thousands of denominations. You don't think it's like it would have been beneficial if he would have been actually clear about what he said?
it's not like, it's a very different world today than it was back then.
Right. But he's beyond
you
space
didn't
and
have trans
time.
people. Well, you probably did have trans people back then, but they weren't known to be trans necessarily. It was a different culture.
Right.
There are different issues and all that, so they couldn't comment on the kinds of issues we're dealing with today.
But why not? If he's beyond like time and space like people believe, why couldn't he address those issues?
You mean all the way back then?
Yeah.
I would argue
Yeah.
he did in the sense that he gave us the foundational principles and guidelines of which, if you apply his principles of, love thy neighbor, turn the other cheek,
But
forgiveness,
Greg,
God is literally the substance of love. And if you apply those today, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, yeah.
You are a minority of most Christians. Right? Like, most Christians don't believe that trans people are going to heaven, right? Like, a lot of people, they don't. And so a lot of the majority of Christian denomination across the world would say you're not a true Christian because you believe in what you believe. So therefore you're going to hell, Greg, because you are preaching a false gospel.
Well,
but
okay, even I'm not going to accept that as true, but if it were true, and let's just say it is, the truth doesn't lie with the majority. anyway, right? Like majority of people believe in something doesn't make them the real authority.
Sure,
Because they're the
sure,
majority.
Greg, but that's the thing, right? And this is what we talk about on the show is there is no evidence to prove you right or wrong here. Right? Like there is nothing you can tell me or Taylor unless you can give it a shot. Please tell me why
Yeah.
your way of belief is the correct one versus the other Southern Baptist that believes in the same Bible, same book, same Jesus, everything, but has a completely fundamental oppositional view to you. Prove to me why the Baptist is wrong and you are right. What is your evidence to make that claim?
I mean, Jesus literally said, "Turn the other cheek." And if a thief steals your tunic, you give them steals your cloak. Excuse me, give them your
But
tunic.
that's not evidence.
I mean,
So,
that's
Greg,
not evidence. Jesus' own words.
But Greg, so this is
Yeah.
where my issue comes in. Is that like,
Yeah.
okay, so let's say that's your evidence for what you think God wants you to do. What about Christians who point to things in the Old Testament where God commands people to slaughter other people, even kids and women and stuff? What if they say, well, we know that God commands violence sometimes, or we know God commands vengeance sometimes and stuff like that, and they point to that as their evidence? Because I'm
mean-
guessing you believe in like the Holy Trinity, like they're the same God, right?
Yeah. I was just
So
gonna
what
say,
about that?
I was gonna say, okay, I admit, I was gonna say the New Testament trumps the Old Testament, but then I remember, I mean, that's true. Like, I came to fulfill the law or not abolish the law. So if you interpret that
But
in terming
but
like
even
Old
if
Testament
it
law, it gives you a different way of looking at things. So, I'm sorry.
right,
Go ahead. Yeah.
but even if even we're not even talking about like the law right now. We're just talking about
Oh, okay.
God's morality and stuff that he commanded. So like it has nothing to do about that doesn't happen anymore. If God is moral, always objectively moral, he would have never commanded people to slaughter other people if that's immoral, right? So like did he command something immoral, or is it moral to slaughter people in the name of God if God wants you to do that, even children?
I mean, I feel like the Old Testament is possibly a very misunderstood collection of books because I feel
Well,
like again, and you're probably gonna call this a cop out answer. I get why you're gonna call it a cop out answer. I totally get it, but I feel like that's a more of a historical context and not really.
Well, why isn't the New Testament the same, Greg? Why can't I just say what you just said about the New Testament or the Bible itself? It's just a historical document that people used to believe in as in reality. You see what I mean? It's the same. I could use the same logic for your New Testament that you just used on the Old Testament. So there's still no evidence to prove to me why this is so. And that's why,
Okay.
Greg, I'll tell you something. The reason I left religion is because I read the Bible. Like I
wow.
read the Bible and then I was just like, wow, this is not what I was taught as a kid. Because when I was taught as a kid, the Bible was like, oh, God wants you to love your neighbor and all of this type of stuff. But when I started reading about boiling babies and bears ripping apart people because some guy called him Baldy, and then started reading Revelations about the fact that he was just going to let people just burn in hell on earth because of like I started reading it. I'm like, wow, this writing is just not what I was taught to believe. And so for me, I think that a lot of people who are religious don't actually read the scripture or just pass over the points that they disagree with and only believe the parts that they want to agree with. And I think that is a very problematic way of trying to believe something is true or not. So that's why when I look at, this topic, it's like I cannot prove that this is true by looking at the source material to say it's true. And that's essentially what faith claims are, right? Because you're using the Bible to prove that God is true.
And Greg, I do want to say, if there was just the Old Testament didn't exist, there is a chance I would still be Christian and still have not been so troubled, because I had like a similar thing as Josie of like reading the Bible, really taking the time to dig deep into what I was believing, and it really bothered me that to feel good about what I was a part of, I had to completely ignore most of the Bible, which is the Old Testament. And I was raised fundamentalist, like I believed everything that in the Old Testament, I believe that stuff happened, so I believe all of that was like historical. Um and to I would have had to ignore all of that, and it didn't feel right. Like I had to come to terms with the fact that that God in the Old Testament was the same as Jesus, because that is what they told me. And if they're the same God, they are just no different. Even though they act drastically different in the Bible, which kind of like tells me it's very much a man-made book, because people have different views of what God should look like and how he should act. And it makes sense that what we want God to look like has evolved over time, right? And like the newer God would be maybe more empathetic, because maybe the world isn't as brutal as it was before that. But it did really bother me that this God, it's easy to just say, oh, Jesus says to love, Jesus says to have empathy, Jesus says to care about the sick and the poor, when you are ignoring most of the Bible, which is the Old Testament, which is a very bloodthirsty, vengeful God. He's very violent. He commands people to do violence. Yeah, I just don't really know how you could separate those things without having to continue a wild amount of cognitive dissonance like every single day.
I mean, this is going to sound weird, possibly. I mean, I feel almost like the reasons you left Christianity are maybe possibly more important than whether you're Christian. If that makes any sense. Like, and so in a weird way, oh, this is going to sound so dumb, but in a weird way, that was the Christian thing to do for you, for your story. Because I
Well,
believe God is love. So the reasons why you're
right.
choosing, yeah.
No, I
But
understand what you're
anyway,
saying,
but
because I
yeah.
really I really connected with the humanistic part of religion, because there can be humanism within
Mhm.
religion when if you're just focusing on Jesus. But the thing is, sure, you can do that, but you are ignoring a lot of, I would have to continue to ignore a lot of super concerning things in the Bible. And I feel like Jesus is this like flowery figure of like everything's good, everything's great, while they're like, well, like just don't look over here, whenever he was being like absolutely bloodthirsty and vengeful and terrible. It kind of feels like I'm just believing a lie. That's what it felt like at that point. And I can still, like this idea of Jesus. Like, sure, if all Christians were like, oh, we want to be like Jesus, then sure, I probably wouldn't even like care that much. But that's not the case, because there's a reason why a lot of, especially like evangelical Christian nationalists, feel okay with being as hateful as they are, is because they look at times in the Bible where God is being hateful. And they're like, God commanded some pretty terrible things. Like, this is like, I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to be justified. And then you hear things like sin of empathy. And the issue I have is when like, more, I guess you want to call it loving Christians are like, oh, well, those people aren't real Christians. I think they're just as Christian as you are. They're just paying attention to different parts of the Bible, and you're paying attention to a different section. But to me, you're all Christians. You're just taking what you want from it, and they're just taking what they want from it to be bigoted and feel good about being bigoted.
I just want to say, I mean, try not to roll your eyes too hard at this, but with what you just described and everything, with a lot of people, using Christianity as an excuse, like I've actually heard that, by the way. I've heard that phrase, the empathy of, or the sin as an empathy, or empathy as a sin, and all that. I feel, okay, this is going to be an eye-rolling moment. I'll say it anyway. I feel like that could possibly be almost like a Revelations times that we're living in, and that those are the false Christians, those are the false prophets. Like with Trump, I don't want to get too political. But like the way that he's kind of like worshipped to an extent, and he's not actually
Right.
Christian. Like his lifestyle doesn't resemble it at all. but he's, you know, but the merging of politics and religion, with that, it's weird. It's spooky, and
Yeah.
and I'm not saying we are in Revelation's times. I don't know that. That would be hubris of me to say that. But that's my perspective on that.
But my
Yeah,
question
anyway.
is, couldn't people in the Old Testament say, um, the sin of empathy whenever God's asking them to carry out this violent act of seeking vengeance on other people and slaughtering other people? Couldn't back then they be like, oh, we can't let empathy get in the way. We have to carry out what God wants us to do. That's not like an end times thing. Like that, like if you believe in the Bible, this has happened before where you've had to ignore your humanity and empathy to partake in something
Yeah.
God has asked you to do. Like Isaac and Abraham, like if you were valuing your empathy and humanity, he wouldn't even thought about sacrificing his son. But God said, like, this is like what you need to ignore that stuff. So don't you think that's not just like an end times thing? It makes sense why some Christians think, oh, God wants me to sometimes ignore my empathy and humanity.
Okay, I would say, like, as you pointed out, some Christians are pointing to that stuff in the Old Testament. I'm pointing to some stuff in the New Testament. I would argue that wouldn't chronologically win in that sense, if nothing else. I mean, because the New Testament came after, it's essentially laws are being updated, so you can't point to the outdated.
But it's not about laws. It's not about laws. It's about God's morality. It's not about laws. It's about, did God, like, okay, so do you think that God commanding that stuff was wrong?
I'll be honest with you. That's a hard one for me. Even before I called, I mean, that's something that I like. I mean, I usually
Yeah.
that's
So Greg, I hate to do this because with we have a few more calls at the end of the show, but I want you to think about something.
Totally get it. Totally
Okay?
get it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want you to think about something as you leave this call about something that struck me is what you said earlier about the most Christian thing to do was to leave religion because we were doing it in a Christian way, right? And I want to challenge that perspective and say, actually, the reason we left Christianity, at least for the reasons I did, was because it was the most human thing to do. And I want you to think about, if there was no God claim or no Jesus in your life, does that mean that you would not be a good person? Because Greg, I hear your humanity in this call. You care about people. You have empathy for people. You really do, and I get that 100%. And I get that. But the thing is, I get that from Greg, not because Greg believes in Jesus, right? I think that you as a human are a good person. And if there wasn't a book telling you to be a good person, I think you'd be a good person, because the things that you have said in this call, there are things in the book that you believe that if you were to do would not be good things, because you have a better judgment of morality than a book that was written thousands of years ago. So I just want you to think about that. What would your life be if you didn't have a moral compass that was based in a book that is just throwing directions all over the place? And what would your moral center be, just as Greg the human?
I promise I'll think about that. But I mean, what I would also say to that is that I believe that when people do good things, it's through the grace of God, even if they're not believers. So I appreciate your kind words, but I would say I can't take credit for it. And even if you don't
Give
believe in
yourself
God,
more
like,
credit.
it's through the grace of that. But yeah, anyway, what did you say?
You
Sorry.
got to give yourself more credit. You got to give yourself more credit, Greg. If that was the case, then all of these Christians that are so hateful would all be loving people, but they're not. So I could easily say, through the grace of God, they're hateful bigots. But you know what?
I think
I
that's
don't
more the
want to
devil
believe.
working. I think that's more the devil working. But anyway, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Well, no, it's fine, Greg. So just think about it, okay? I'm sorry that I have to
promise I'll think
cut the
about
call,
it.
but
No, for sure. I
awesome.
appreciate the time, guys. You have a good one.
Thanks, Greg.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Yeah. we have to we can't go on for a long, even though the calls
Yeah.
look good, we still have to like clips on YouTube, the whole thing.
Yes.
But no, I think that was great. So we're just gonna go down the list of the 3 calls that we have left, from top to bottom.
Okay.
So, and also, if you haven't hit the like or subscribe button, please do that. The line is doing very well, and we are trying to get to 200,000 by the end of the year. So make sure you do that if you haven't done that, and make sure you give it a thumbs up because it's really, really important. Also, join the Patreon when you get an opportunity, and also make sure you join us on Saturday as we are having a fundraiser for the Secular Student Alliance. It's incredibly important that you're there. It's always a really, really good time to be a part of the fun games and things we do. So yeah, thank you for that. And also, if you haven't donated to my campaign and you're a resident of the United States, go ahead and drop a donation there. It's on the Zerba link. I will make sure to drop it in the chat. All right, so we will go ahead and go to Mike, him from DC. Is there a solution for incels? Thank you so much for waiting on hold for so long. We do give priority to a lot of the theist calls, so thank you, Mike. What is your solution for incels?
No, well, it's a shame that Alyssa's not here. I think she needs to be put in her place. No, I'm just joking. No, no. I'm calling because Can you hear me clearly? By the way,
yes.
The screen.
You sound great.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm calling because about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I know Taylor was on the call. You had a YouTube video that said, "Should women be blamed for incels, basically, or should incels blame women for their predicament?"
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the video. It's the first video I've seen from you guys. I watched the video, and I'm sorry, like it triggered some of the things you guys were saying. Kind of, I thought was a little naive, a little triggering for me.
Okay.
And I wrote down a few points that I wanted to talk about because there's a guy who was talking on the phone call, and he was making some good points. You guys had some responses, and I had some responses to what you were saying. So, in general,
Okay.
I think that to answer your question, like the first video is no, women should not be blamed from, like, I think it's a waste of time to hate or like to blame or to, blame women for, like, incels blaming women. That's not going to do anything. I don't think that you should, like, in general, shaming people doesn't work. Like, for example, if a woman came up to a man and said, "Hey, you should date, like, I don't know, 400-pound women or whatever," he's gonna be like, "No, I'm gonna date who I want to date," right? Like, it's the same thing with women. It's like, guys shouldn't say, "Oh, you shouldn't date assholes. You should date, like, weak men, or you should date nice guys." Like, it's not gonna work. It's not productive, and it's futile. So I think that's the thing. But the thing that triggered me is, like, the whole idea of, oh, if you have agency, and, like, if you just pick yourself up by your bootstraps, then things are gonna work, right? I mean, like, I think that that's kind of naive. Like, it's like, you being a good person, you doing quote unquote the right things, you having the right mindset does not guarantee you that you're gonna get results when it comes to dating, when it comes to finance. Like, it doesn't guarantee anything. Like, I think you should be a good person, obviously, but that is completely orthogonal. It's completely unrelated to your dating success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Mike,
like, I think
Mike, I just want to get to an actual point. I know you're saying a lot, but I want to see if you have an actual claim that you want to discuss.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So
I was
go
just
ahead.
Responding to some of the, like, Taylor, I don't know if you remember some of the points I'm making. I was saying, but I was just responding to some of the points. My
Sure,
point
but
is that,
but the people on the show haven't seen that particular clip, so I don't
okay.
like. We just need to make sure that there's
So
context for what you are saying. Go ahead.
maybe just say for your first point of, and
Mhm.
from what I'm hearing, your thing is like we were talking about you know self-proclaimed incels or whatever, they blame women a lot, and they should focus on themselves, working on themselves, and you're saying that doesn't always translate to, that's not always going to fix the problem. And I
Yeah.
agree that you can't you can't guarantee that stuff. That's never going to be a guarantee. I think
Mhm.
it was I think at least my point is, if you're always the victim and like, oh, like there's nothing I can do, typically there is stuff you can at least work on. But I agree that it's not always going to guarantee that you are going to date women or you're going to get women or whatever. I'm not saying I know the solution to that, like the ultimate solution. Um, it's like at the end of the day, we're just like not owed that stuff. And it's like
Yeah.
but it's still I recognize that it's still really hard for people because I'm not gonna pretend like I know what it's like to be in their position. I think that it's just better to encourage them to wanna work on that stuff than to be like, "Well, give up, like, you're
Yeah.
never gonna, like, have what you want," type stuff, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm not gonna claim to know the answer to something like that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. Like, I think that's the only thing. That was my only gripe. Is like, I know you were trying, you and I think Alyssa were trying to, I guess, give solutions. But in my opinion, like there's certain I'm a programmer. I do like I don't know, computer science, or whatever. There's some problems that just don't have solutions, right? Like there's some problems where they'll pay millions of dollars and people still can't figure out a solution. So I guess that's my only point is like there's like yeah, it's a problem. It's definitely a problem, but it's not necessarily a solution. And I also think, like, as an aside, like I also think that the financial situation of the world is making things worse in terms of like men gained sort of their value. They thought the value was in like their economic ability to make money and stuff, and now sort of
Mhm.
the rich are getting richer, and then more people are getting poorer. So men can't like have no. A lot of men have no leverage in that area, you know. So like, there's a lot of different reasons, but like we could talk about the reasons. But in my opinion, it's just a really complicated problem, and I just, you know, much in the same way like my sister, I can't give her advice on certain things she's dealing with. Like she's dealing with guys who are BSers who like say, "Oh yeah, I want a relationship, I want to have kids and stuff," and then 2 years in,
Right.
they don't want to have kids, right? So I can't tell her like do this, do that because I've never been in that situation. And that's the only point I want to make.
Um, I do think it's hard for some people because I do think we're going through this transition period of, obviously not that long ago, women were marrying men because they had to. Like they couldn't open credit cards, they couldn't own property. So if a man had money, a lot of times that's all he needed. And now it's like the case where a lot of times that's not the case, so it's kind of like there are things now you have to bring more to the table, I guess is what I'm saying. Like if a woman can already provide to her for herself, she's gonna want more. Like, you know what I mean? Like she
Mm.
wants to like really want this person, she doesn't need them. And I think that's like kind of a I think that's something that is adjustment that needs to be made. I think for some men, they were told like, as long as you can provide, that's your number one. And I think that was a lie given to them by patriarchy, which that might have worked at one time because we were built more like that, but we're not built like that anymore. And I'm sure a lot of them feel angry about it, slighted about it, like, oh, well, that's what I was told I needed, and I need more than that. So I get the frustration, but this is like one aspect I see of like patriarchy hurting men too, because they were told they only needed like a certain thing and then women would want to be with them, which obviously isn't the case. But I also think the incel thing and has to do with a lot with how a lot of people are a lot more lonely in general, and a lot of people spend a lot more time online. It's hard for people to find community like in real life, and for a lot of people the one way they do that is church. So that's where religion has something really strong because they meet once a week or more than that, like 3 times a week in person. And I think we've become it really like isolating in different ways because we spend so much time at home and online. So yeah, I get the frustration. I can't say I know what the answer is. But I think community would probably be the number one answer, but I can't claim to know exactly how to get that, you know what I mean? Because that's gonna look different for everybody, and I recognize that's a hard task, especially for the younger generation, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of my
Yeah,
thoughts
I
on
mean,
that.
this is a lot. was a lot less contentious than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I appreciate the honesty, and yeah, I don't really have anything else to say.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you for
Thanks for
calling
calling.
in, Mike. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Mike.
Okay. Great. Awesome. So we are gonna go on to our next call. Razor, he, they from California. Oh, Razor, you're very loud.
I
Razor,
apologize.
are you in a wind tunnel? Are you driving?
I was listening. Can you quick take me to the next person? Sorry.
Yeah,
I was
I'll take you
trying
to
to
the
get
next person.
somewhere to park.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Like I was like, can't be driving. That is a rule. I put Razor back in queue. So hopefully they get to where they're gonna go. We'll take Wesley from West Virginia. He, him, wants to talk about Trump.
Hi,
So
Wesley.
yeah, you are Wesley. You are live on the line. Make sure you mute us because I can hear myself in the background. What would you like to talk to us about?
Hello. Yeah, my name is Wesley
Hello.
Lawrence Curry II. Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is, there's two things I'd like to speak about. The real forgiveness of Jesus, which most people get entirely incorrect, and something that's going to touch upon everyone's lives through the lunatic Trump, the one world money system, the omni barcode, branded mark that shall be put upon everyone in America and worldwide.
Oh, okay. And so I'm letting you cook, Wesley. All right. What what is this? What is this barcode you're talking about?
The hell begins soon. I do not know exactly what date, but I did see in the flesh. As soon as it begins, within months comes the mark of the beast, the blotch of Egypt, the omni barcodes. It shall be forced upon you by the lunatic Trump.
Okay.
It will be a branded barcode, and you'll be offered money to get it. $32,523 computer dollars. All those computer dollars. Yeah, when you get your branded mark and you go to the Walmart and you scan your mark on the scanner, an account of $32,523 shall appear on the screen, your first purchase. And you can draw from that account and spend it.
Got it. So that's very interesting. I'll be sure to check my news headlines that this is happening. I am pretty in on this, like political stuff. So I haven't heard anything about this just yet. But Wesley, I got a question for you. So you're quoting a lot of Revelations. So do you take Revelations as literal?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So does that mean that the end of the world is coming soon?
The end of time is the day hell begins, the day Jesus cast Satan to the earth in the flesh. That day will be the day a nuclear bomb explodes in Chicago in the twin corncob buildings known as Marina City. A nuclear bomb.
Where in the Bible does it say this? Where I have not read this part of the Bible. Where in the Bible does it say this?
It's said in Ezekiel, and in that Jesus would give the old men dreams and the young men would see visions. In Ezekiel is the wheel in the middle. The wheel in the middle of the wheel, the color of beryl, the terrible ringing, the fire enfolding in itself. That is what Jesus told Ezekiel to write concerning the green Volvo station wagon, the detonator ringing, and the nuclear mushroom cloud when it explodes.
So
So is
Wesley,
Trump the Antichrist?
No, not yet, and
No.
he will not be the Antichrist. He shall become one of the 10 horns of Satan. He's not going to be the Antichrist.
Got it.
Satan will take over the mind of 10 world leaders. Soon after that explosion in Chicago, that same day, Washington, D.C. shall be destroyed, New York City, Huntington, West Virginia, Atlanta, and Moscow shall be destroyed. Trump shall meet with 9 world leaders. There'll be it'll be a tragedy to the economy. No more business management from New York. No more Treasury sending out government.
Got it.
All right. Leaders will.
So Wesley, okay. So Wesley, I let you cook for a while here, so I'm gonna rein it in a second here because my questions are not stemming from what you were saying, but my question is how. Like, how do you know this? Like you said about Ezekiel and the things but I want to know what is it that is telling you that these events are going to happen? How can you prove to me that this is going to happen?
I would that you really did want to know that.
No. I'm actually serious. Like, because I want to know. Like, for me, I like to know. I'm an evidential girl, right? I used to operate nuclear reactors, right? And so for me, when it comes to like science and logic and how things operate and things like that, I actually want to know like where you are. How are you like? Where is the truth claim that you can tell me that is like, yes, this is what's going to happen? Like, how do you prove it to me? Because what you're saying is pretty outlandish in a lot of circles. So because like if you were telling the truth, right? And I'm not saying you're not trying to tell me the truth, but if you were to say this would cause mass panic in the streets, like people would be like, oh my gosh, there's a bomb going off in Chicago, like there's all these things. I live right outside of DC. That concerns my life. So for me, like I am very interested in the idea that like this is what is the truth claim that you are making, because it is affecting my vital health and all the friends that I have in Chicago and New York and DC and all of that type of stuff. So how can you prove it to me that this is true so I can give warning to everyone I love and care for that live in these areas?
Mm-hmm. Jesus showed this to you many times in visions and dreams.
Okay, but like a lot of people have visions and dreams. You'd be surprised how many people have called onto this show saying that Jesus came to them in a dream, or they were on their deathbed and they saw Jesus, so therefore they believe it. And so what makes your claim different from another person that's had these same visions on different subjects?
I'll consider the question. There's a vision Jesus gave you, and he told you, tell the vision, and you shall not need the mark. The Omni barcode is that mark.
Right, but where is this vision? I never received the vision. I never saw this.
Jesus, would you show all that group the vision of God that is written in the Old Testament, the vision of the morning and the evening that is true, that is written in Daniel, the vision that the 12 apostles spoke on the first day of Pentecost?
But that's
the valley. Let me
you're
finish.
using the Bible.
If you're interrupting, it means you're not listening.
All right, go for it. I'll let you cook a little longer.
The vision of the valley in the shadow of death, written in Psalms 23, and the vision that is written in James, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were like unto fire. Would you show all of that vision now, please?
All right, I'm waiting for the vision. I'm waiting. I haven't.
If you will
I
tell
haven't
that
seen it.
vision, you will not need the mark. The evidence was given
Oh,
to you 9 months ago when an angel sent you real bread. You do not want evidence. You want to make an ultimatum, and then when your ultimatum is met, you make another ultimatum.
okay. So if you, I will say this, Wesley. If you can give me a date, I will wait on that date. And if you are wrong, I would love to see you call in and tell me why you were wrong, because it seems like a pretty big claim. I mean, that's essentially like that would be undeniable proof, like Wesley was right. But do you have a date on this, or is this just something that you think is going to happen in the near future?
None know the exact date, but the weather report has been shown by Jesus in visions and dreams. It shall happen while the lunatic Trump is president.
Okay, so when so when Trump is no longer president and none of this comes to pass, Wesley, I want you to call me and tell me why you were wrong. and if it does come to pass, you were right.
But do you say that Jesus did not appear to you on August 25th in the year 2005? That Jesus did not say to you, tell the vision? Is that what you claim?
I definitely claim that did not happen to me. 2025,
okay,
I was in power school.
Jesus, would you please remove the hedge from everyone in that gang's left ears for a moment, please?
So, thank you, Wesley. Taylor, do you have anything you want to add before we have to move on to the next call?
Literally not a thing.
Okay. Well, Wesley, thank you for sharing your knowledge and information, and I will be waiting on the claim. So I will talk to you later, hopefully. All right. Bye-bye.
If you take the Omni barcode, you're going to get some scabs that itch.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Wesley. Have a great rest of the night. Bye-bye. I take a risk. Sometimes people are cooking, but they're not cooking anything, but just the oil, and then that oil just turns into carcinogens into the air.
They're cooking. They're just cooking
up some
with
danger.
nuts. Nothing else. Just a pot of nuts. It's getting nutty.
Walter White up in here.
It's getting nutty in here.
Hey, chat, I hope you enjoyed that I let that call go on for as long as I should have not let that go on, but I did, because that's how it goes sometimes. But hey, there were some pretty solid claims going in. So let's see if Razor is done with the skydiving trip. Razor, you are Sorry, Razor. I had to mute you because it's very loud and it sounds like you're driving. Please call in next week, and we will definitely get to your question. Sorry that you were on hold for so long. And if you tell the call screener next week that you were on hold for a long time, we'll make sure to keep you on the top of the queue. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day. All right. So that was the last call. Oh,
wow!
Do we read super chats? Or do we not read?
Yeah, we do that on
I
this.
can't remember.
We do that on this show.
Okay. Go ahead, Taylor. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, what a way to end it.
What a way to end it. That last one. I was hoping he was gonna give me an exact date so I can set it on my calendar.
Right.
I really wanted that. I wanted that date. I wanted to know when is it gonna happen. Yeah.
Unfortunately, just vague prophecies going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But don't get the barcode, you'll get itchy. So remember that.
You'll get itchy scabs. I remember that. I was thinking about that barcode. That 32,000 computer monies, but I didn't get those computer dollars. Didn't get those. Damn. Yep. All right. So we are going to be reading super chats. If you like your super chat read, make sure you donate $5 or more, and Taylor and I will read them. And it's been a great show, Taylor. I really appreciated being on with you today.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah,
fun.
it's a good time. And you have a lava lamp. I'm super jealous. I haven't seen a lava lamp in forever. It's super
They're
great.
so fun. I'll just stare at it forever.
Yeah. That's why I probably don't have one, because then I'll get no work done. $5 from Melissa R. The cis man that hate trans because of bathroom issue do not trust men and think they have zero control over their weenus projection. Jesus. Jeez.
True.
Yeah.
$5 from Coffee Mom. Colonization sailing the world to erase every single culture that doesn't automatically subjugate non-males of our species, calling it civilized. True. Thanks, Coffee Mom.
Thank you. £5 from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. I follow the wander over yonder philosophy of life. I know what it's like to suffer, so I do my best to prevent and minimize suffering. Ooh, yeah, that's a nice way. It's a good
Yeah.
way to live life.
$10 from the Atheist Mechanic. Congratulations, chat. We found a caller that's worse than Andrew. How do you pronounce her name again? Tamar or Tomris? Tomris? You are a sick individual. Yeah, I'm surprised Andrew didn't
Yeah.
call in. He literally was calling in every single week for like a while. So yeah, no Andrew tonight.
I don't know what they did last night, but I know that Sunday night I was like, we are going to take a temporary break. And he did try to call in, and I had the
Oh.
screener tell him that we're taking a little break. I want him to take a couple weeks and go live his actual life.
No, that's that is smart. That is a wise choice.
Yeah. It is. Lux always has those good choices for a caller sometimes. It's super helpful.
It takes a few months before I'm like, no more of this.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. $4.99 from Ashley Ray. A foster parent in my hometown was convicted for trying to sell her foster daughter to some dude on the internet. But go on, Tomris. Yeah. Oof.
That's so
God, that's so
foul.
sad. It's so bad.
That's disturbing. $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. To say a shower is needed after that call with Tomris, nah, set the pressure washer to max and hose me down. Effing yikes. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a moment in that call when he said that I was like, "Oh, it's time to pull the ripcord on this conversation." But
Yeah.
Lux did the right thing and called it out right away, because I was just like, it was just so much. It's just so much. It's like their thoughts are
Yeah.
just so just like intrinsic to how they believe, and don't actually have empathy for what they're talking about is and what the subject matter is. They don't think about an actual 10-year-old
Yeah,
having a
and
baby.
not like, yeah, they don't have much reasoning behind anything they said. And when you ask them, they're like, it just is. It's like, okay, well, that's why your arguments are illogical, because you don't have a reason for saying what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Oh wait, is this me? Oh yeah, I think it
I
is.
think.
Maybe not.
Okay, I don't
Is
know.
it you?
I'll just go.
Go for it.
$5
I
from
always use
God
count this
Center.
late at night.
Me too. I wish I had not been born but because I try my best to remember my life is important and I will not risk bringing another to suffer how I did. Very understandable. That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people view life like they recognize life is suffering, so like they don't necessarily think bringing more life in the world is good, and I understand that perspective.
Yeah, like they're like right now, people are just not having kids, and like school
Yeah.
attendance rates at the lower grades are lower than they've ever been, because people just see the world burning down, and so like why would you want to bring somebody into that? It's like to deal
Right,
with
and
all of the
they expect people to want to have kids right now. That's insane to me. That's like, what? Okay. Sure. Nobody wants
sure,
to do
yeah.
that.
Yeah. $4.99 from Coffee Mom. Nobody is perfect. That doesn't mean sin is real. Sin is only possible if you offend God. I can't be a sinner
Yep.
when there is no God to offend. Yeah,
Yep. Preach.
it's true.
$4.99 from QA Colin. One, what's Tomris say on DNR and life support? Also, Daniela Mistianik is an excellent cult scholar and fiber artist for all your revolutionary sparkly yarn needs.
Awesome.
Interesting.
$4.99 from Chilla or Chiloa. It pisses me off that Christians preach they're the moral ones when I'm learning they're not so. They're not so not. Not all, but some. Fucking indoctrination. Thanks for the show. You're welcome. Yep.
$5 from Sarah Talks Podcast. Hashtag Team Josie. Oh, wrong show. Anyways, thanks for the show. Hashtag death. Hashtag. Wait, I have to know this one. No, I don't. GFYJ. Oh, go fuck yourself,
Well, that
Jimmy. Oh
was
my
Go
gosh,
Fuck
okay, I
Yourself for
remembered
me.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I finally
And I
remembered
forget
it.
what
Sometimes these
DHS is.
inside jokes I don't remember.
Yeah, it's fine. I forget what death is. Ugh, I'm the worst.
Me too.
And yes,
Don't
Team Josie
apologize to
always
isn't
him.
it-
wins.
That's what death is.
Yes, I was just about to say
that's
it.
it.
Yes.
Ah,
Okay.
yes. $20 from Mr. Bariqua. Tomris, you dismal, disgusting, condescending, uncaring, petulant, slimy, mealy-mouthed, mind-wormed, rotted, corroded, putrid vessel of vessel and vessel and of pestilence. What makes you what makes you to high horse as you care? Oh, I have to put it in the way. Care for life. Humph. Well said.
That was pretty creative. Damn.
Yeah, it was.
$20 from the Fuzzy Logic. Let us read from the book of Roddenberry, in which thermonuclear World War III leads to the arrival of extraterrestrial saviors. So what am I reading right now? So humanity can shed our dogma, trek to the stars, and usher in fully automated gay space communist utopia. Word.
Star Trek.
Thank you, Fuzzy Logic.
Star Trek. Yeah, Star Trek. Roddenberry is the creator of Star Trek. Yeah. I love it though. That's a better worldview than the Revelations one. $5 from Razor Sharp. Sorry about my Bluetooth malfunctioning. I'll try to be ready next week. Love y'all. And to anyone in CA, yes on 50. Yes on 50. And yeah, sorry that we couldn't take your call, Razor. And I'm sorry, especially since you were patiently waiting in the queue for so long. So call in next week.
I hope Razor had a good skydiving session though.
Yeah, it was great skydiving. Yeah, especially at night, you must saw all the lights. Yeah. Well, that is the show on Chewed Gum today. It was a great show. It was a lot of fun, Taylor. I'm really happy that we got to spend some time together.
Me
Yeah,
too.
I always love Chewed
Hopefully
Gum.
we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be sooner than later. Also, if you haven't liked and subscribed, do that now. And also, make sure you join our Patreon. Go and do that. And also, if you haven't donated to the campaign, we're like $150 away from hitting our goal tonight. Let's do it. Thank you. Links in the chat. I really appreciate you so much. And like, Chewed Gum has the best music. It's the great best. Rain don't stop.